both on, so hopefully that works.
So did you say you were able to sign in?
Just checking. Keeps kicking me off the Cisco system.
Okay, we'll get how to remote. We're going to remote into your laptop. Councilor DeGenova, are you on the call?
I am, and I'm setting up my WebEx, but I'm the solo parent at home tonight without any childcare, so I'll be back and forth. But I've got my panel up.
Great, thank you. We'll label you. Councilor Kirby Young, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Hi, Rosemary.
Hi there. Thanks.
I have
Rosemary, it's Adrian, and
Hi there.
I'm sorry, there's an echo, but somehow somebody else is on. Now my webcam is disconnected. It's weird.
Okay, we'll send Hao in there when he's done with the mayor.
Thank you.
maybe we're both trying to log into the same computer.
Do you want to?
While we're here, clerks, are we pretty close to quorum?
Mr. Yes, we do have quorum, so you may start.
Just waiting. We're going to wait for Hao just to tweak a couple of things, but I could see if just a few minutes. My connection seems to be stabilized now, so.
Okay.
Okay, clerks, I think I'm.
Present.
Councillor Weeb,
Present.
Councillor Boyle,
Present.
Councillor Dominato,
Present.
Councillor Bly, Councillor Kubiak.
Present.
You have quorum, Mayor Stewart.
The application, refuse the application, or defer the application for future consideration. And we've had quite a lot of work on that over the last couple of days, so hopefully those options are clear. Now we're going to move to application number 1, the rezoning on West 33rd Avenue. And clerk will read the summary now.
Mayor Stewart, just give us a minute. We're just trying to find a paper.
That's no problem. I have that problem all day.
This is an application by Formworks Architecture Incorporated to rezone 809 to 889 West 33rd Avenue from RS1 One Family Dwelling District to RM8A Multiple Dwelling District to permit a townhouse development with a floor space ratio of up to 1.2. If rezoning is approved, a subsequent development permit process would entail review of a proposed form of development. 2 pieces of correspondence in opposition to the application have been received since 3 p.m. today.
Thanks very much. If there's any speakers who want to speak in this item, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 62961 hashtag to get on the list. And the phone number is tweeted out and available on the live stream feed, just in case you've missed those numbers. We do have speakers to this, registered to speak to this council, so we'll move right to the presentation from Austin Norrie from the Rezoning Center, and apparently there are 8 slides for us to take a look at. So please, Austin Norrie, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me and see my screen?
We can hear you, and I'm just going to see with the orange cone if I can see your screen. Not up yet, but at least on mine, the clerks, we're close to having it up.
Yes, Mayor Stewart, you can see it now.
Yes, I can. So please go ahead.
Great. Before you this evening is a townhouse rezoning application under the Canby Corridor Plan and is an application under the simplified rezoning process. This simplified rezoning process was developed in order to secure utility upgrades to accommodate additional growth within the Canby Corridor. Since this proposal is to rezone the site to the RM8 district schedule, no form of development is required at the rezoning stage. This simplified rezoning process reduces the rezoning application's processing time to approximately 5 months. The proposed use is conditional under the RM8 district schedule and will be reviewed through the development permit process in regards to form of development and any impacts to the surrounding area. The development permit process will include opportunities for public feedback and will be taken into consideration into the final design. The rezoning application for 809 to 889 West 33rd Avenue is located in the Queen Elizabeth neighborhood of the Canby Corridor Plan. The proposal is for stacked townhouses or row houses up to 3 stories fronting a street with a maximum floor space ratio of 1.2. The applicant is proposing roughly 45 strata units. The site is located along West 33rd Avenue between Willow and Laurel Street. To the south is Eric Camber School and Field, and to the north is BC Children's Hospital. The site consists of 5 single-family detached homes, which are all currently occupied by their property owners. There are currently no rental tenants living on the properties. A total of approximately 365 postal notifications were distributed within a 2-block radius of the site location. No written correspondence or feedback has been received between the application intake and the date of the written referral report. To conclude, this proposal aligns with the Canby Corridor Plan and would join one of 30 townhouse projects that have been approved since the plan's adoption in 2018. If approved, the project will provide a little over $1.1 million in public benefits and would be responsible for generating approximately 135 consultant, construction, or supplier-based jobs. Staff recommend approval of this application, along with the conditions of approval outlined in Appendix B of the referral report. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and we'll move on to the applicant team. Does the applicant team here, and do you wish to speak to the application or answer questions from council?
I am here, and I'd like to give a quick opening statement.
Please go right ahead.
Okay. I'm Andrew from Formworks. We wanted to say we are pleased and excited to bring you the proposal for 800 block on West 33rd. We feel it will add some housing options for families in the neighborhood, and through further development in the DP process, the architecture will fit in with the character of the neighborhood. In our experience, townhouses around the courtyard give a ground-oriented family option for living, as well as create a sense of community. And this is established in the RM8A bylaw proposed, as well as gives a gentle transition to the single-family houses in the adjacent neighborhood. I look forward to your feedback, Council and Mayor.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move to hearing, I'm going to ask if there's any questions. And again, Council, this is your only opportunity to ask questions of the applicant if you have any. So I've got the question queue open if you have any questions. I don't see anybody on the list, so I'm going to move to hearing from speakers then. Let's see, we have on the list Hugh Fraser and Kathy Fraser. Both are listed as being in person. So maybe start with Mr. Fraser.
Mayor Stewart, yes, we have both speakers here in person. They're just making their way to the chamber.
Great, thanks very much.
Hugh Fraser is ready to speak.
Is there a presentation as well, clerks, or just verbal presentation?
It would be just verbal.
There is a presentation, Your Worship. I sent a presentation yesterday.
Clerks, did you receive a presentation?
I have a memory stick, if that would be of assistance.
We're just looking for the presentation.
Yes, thanks for coming in, Mr. Fraser. We're just they do have to be sent in advance. So
this was sent in advance, Your Worship.
That's right. So clerks are going to just take a look for it, and I'll just wait for them to get back to me. Please be patient. Thank you.
I also brought on a memory stick, if that's of any assistance.
It might be. I'm just going to wait to hear from the clerk, and I'll be right back to you.
Mayor Stewart, thanks for your patience. We do have it now.
Great. Okay, thanks very much. And I see it up on the screen with the yellow cones, Council. So, Mr. Fraser, I'm going to just got about 5 screens open here. So I think we're ready to go. Up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready. And if you want your slides to advance, just say the word next. There is a little bit of delay, about 20 seconds between what you'll with the live stream. So please go ahead up to 5 minutes.
Just one question for your worship. I understand after giving another presentation to council that if my wife was here and I went over the 5 minutes, you would allow for a little bit of over. I think I will be within the 5, but I just wanted to make sure that I can run through all the slides.
Sure. I mean, how it can work is that you both have 5 minutes, and you can speak to the same presentation, so that's totally allowed. So please, whenever you're ready, and I'll let you know when you've got about 30 seconds left.
Thank you. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a resident's perspective with respect to this proposed development in the area. Maybe you can move to the next slide, please. From an overview perspective, I want to talk to you about the context to some of the issues and concerns that we have. We're residents immediately to the north. And I've got some additional recommendations that I would like council to seriously consider with respect to this development. Next slide, please. So the context here, too bad it's not in color, but our property is kind of to the northwest of the block, and so it will be immediately impacted by the development between Willow and Laurel, which is kind of the 5 homes on the south side of the lane. Currently, it's a single-family area, and planning amendments in this area have been proceeding very quickly. We constructed a new home in about 2012, 2013. And when we made application at that particular time, we asked what would be happening with respect to Cambie, and we were told that, well, Cambie Phase 3 was 20 years or more away. It's moved extremely quickly. And now we're at the point where this area is being rezoned, and will have a significant impact on the homes to the north and in the adjacent area. Next slide, please. Just a few photos with respect to the context. These are the traffic signals looking northwest here, the corner of 33rd and Willow. Next slide, please. These are the homes that are fronting, which currently there's a townhouse proposal for. Next slide, please. This is the laneway at the rear, and just like you to take note that currently the laneway drops down a fair bit, but then it comes up again at Laurel. And I'll touch on it a little bit later, but historically there were flooding problems in that low point there, and I want to ensure that that will not occur in the future. Next slide, please. And this is a view from the laneway looking east. And as you can see in these particular areas, there's a significant number of trees. We have a lot of birds. I would call it the urban forest. So I just want to raise with you a number of the issues that are of concern to us relative to this development proposal. Next slide, please. So first of all, we're kind of curious why the residents are applying and not the developer relative to this particular application, because the signs at the front say Vertex Development. My understanding that they are independent from the residents. I know with this kind of expedited rezoning process, there is the ability to make this application without due respect to design or number of units on the site. And so we don't really have anything. Just heard today 45 units, which is an awful lot. There's lack of information with respect to building heights. Servicing for us particularly, but in that area will be extremely disruptive. There needs to be 2 pipes now put down the lane and also on Laurel Street. The long-term laneway use, currently there's shortcutting of traffic and larger delivery trucks that use it a fair bit, and we're concerned that that may change and impact in the future. With 45 units, the parking impacts are going to be pretty substantial. Tree retention and replacement is an issue for us. The impact on adjacent private landscaping. When we submitted our plans previously, we were requested to do additional landscaping, particularly with respect to the laneway house. And given the amount of work that's going to be incurring in this area, we're concerned that that will be affected. And then finally, in these COVID times, concerns with respect to many of us are working from home, hydro, phone, internet service can be pretty disrupted when there's construction occurring in the immediate area. So I would like council to seriously consider the following recommendations. Next slide, please. First of all, the proposal is for 45 units on the site, and we're suggesting that it be reduced to 25 units. That would be more accommodating from a single-family perspective and for encouraging families. We need more space in the homes, and we recognize that this area is being redeveloped. We're requesting the maximum heights be limited on the rear lane to about 20 feet. That was the limitation we were given, 19 feet for our laneway house. And at the front of 33rd, we reduced to about 25 feet. The roadway drainage improvements, there's challenges have been historically, and we would ask that water entering to the property, not enter the properties to the north, and there be proper major system design done.
I'm just going to stop you there, Mr. Fraser. You're at your 5 minutes. So if you wanted to perhaps your wife continue on, that's perfectly allowable. But you are at your 5.
Okay, I can't speak on the balance of that on behalf of my wife.
No, it is per individual 5 minutes. Sorry, and it's that's in our charter. So I have to treat everybody the same, and because it is a quasi-judicial process, and so your 5 minutes is concluded. But your wife would be perfectly welcome to carry on with your slides.
I think she's maybe a bit shy with respect to that, but the other items are listed there, and I thank you for your attention and trust that you may bring forward a modification to the current report. Thank you.
Thanks. You do have questions, though, Mr. Fraser, so maybe that'll give you time to finish your presentation. So Councillor Carr has questions for up to 5 minutes, so maybe that would be the time you need. Councillor Carr, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks. I'm sorry, I seem to have a duplicate in my sound, so I'm going to try and correct that.
Okay, I can move on to, we'll just cede the floor to Councillor Dominato. Councillor Dominato, up to 5 minutes.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Fraser, for the presentation. I'm just curious of the issues and concerns that you identified. What would be your number one or top 2 issues? Because there's quite a few there, but what's of greatest issue or concern to you?
Top 2 issues, I would say, relate to the number of units and then the ensuring that there's no drainage impacts to the adjacent property.
Yeah, that's really helpful just because it can help us narrow down just with some questions to staff when we have an opportunity. So I appreciate that. That was my only question, was just that clarification. So thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure. Councillor Carr, how are you doing? Councillor Hardwick has actually come on the queue, so that leaves us a little bit more time for Councillor Carr to get back on. Councillor Hardwick, up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead with questions.
Thank you very much. Could you elaborate a little bit on the trees? You emphasized quite a lot, mentioned a tree retention plan. Could you be more specific?
Well, just in this particular neighborhood, the family moved in there back in the 60s, and there's just been a lot of trees that have grown up in that particular area. We recognize with respect to the development that quite a number of them will probably have to come down. But we do have a range of birds, and we would like to ensure that not all of them are removed. From our back porch, we can look out and view beautiful fir trees, spruce trees, hedges, cedar trees, that type of thing. And some of them obviously will have to be removed with the development proceeding, but there's others that we think should be retained.
I'm certain the city staff will look at that quite closely. You mentioned a maximum number of units not to exceed 25. How did you arrive at 25?
From a family perspective, there's a couple of factors. One is a parking factor, because this area is particularly stressed relative to parking. And the other factor relates to size of units. And we see in Vancouver that units are getting really small, 400, 500, 600, 800 square feet. And we think kind of in the neighborhood that we should be allowing for units that are like 1,500 to 1,800 square feet, so that you can actually have reasonable space for a family, and particularly in these COVID times.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Carr, how are you doing with your technical side of things? Clerk says
Eric, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Did you want to get back on the queue and ask questions?
I believe that technical assistance arrived in the nick of time. So
I see it. See him right there. Hello. Okay, Councillor Carr. So please, up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you. I'm interested. You did state about the fact that flooding has occurred. I'm wondering if you could explain to us if that flooding has been persistent over time, if it's increasing in terms of the quantity, if it's just seasonal. I mean, what is the situation around the flooding?
Well, it was primarily seasonal, and it primarily occurred before we built the new house. And the reason is that it would run down the lane and then also down Laurel and into the back, and kind of sort of between our property and the property immediately to the east, there's a bit of a low point there. That was mostly resolved for most flow conditions when a large catch basin and speed humps were put into the road area there. And then when I built the new house, one of the key things was that I wanted to make sure that the elevation was such that it would not flow in. So if this road elevation is increased at all, then there's a good possibility that the runoff could go into both of our property and the one to the east of us, similar to what it was in the past. And I want to make sure that that does not occur.
Right. And you are supportive of the upgrades to the various drainage systems and the sanitary sewer. You are supportive of that. You're just worried about the disruption during the construction phase. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, the reality is that the city has a policy with respect to storm sewer separation, and you're requiring developers to do storm sewer separation from the development site to some distance downstream. And that should add some additional capacity. And I see in the report as well that it's dealing with the issue of climate change, so it's going to be oversized slightly. But can you imagine living on a property where there's a new house, and then all of a sudden you're going to have the street dug up probably to a depth of about 10 feet on your rear lane, two sides of your property. And I know construction is very disruptive and can be quite damaging to homes and our tenant, which lives right next to it on the lane in the new laneway house that we built. So there's potentially pretty significant disruption that's going to occur, both from a parking perspective and also from a construction vibration perspective. The soil conditions in this area are not particularly conducive. When we built the house, we found that there was 8 or 10 feet of peat/topsoil in this area, and it seemed to be a remnant creek that had been in this particular area. You can follow it through the Women's and Children's Hospital, kind of to the north. And so digging up the road will probably induce a lot of vibration, cause a lot of disruption.
Okay, I get the picture. Thank you. That's all the questions for me.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. I don't see. I think that's it for time and questions. Thank you, Mr. Fraser. And I don't see anybody else on the list, Council, to speak to this. So I am going to just return to my script here for a second. And if other speakers want to speak to this item, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 62961 hashtag to get on the list. And clerks, I'm going to make this my first call for additional speakers. Clerks, are there any speakers on the line or in chambers to speak to this?
The next speaker is in person, and Kathy Fraser is ready to speak.
Kathy Fraser. Okay, great. Ms. Fraser, whenever you're ready, up to 5 minutes.
Mayor Stewart, Kathy Fraser is not speaking anymore.
Okay, that's fine. Are there any other speakers in chambers?
No, we don't have any other speakers in the chamber or online.
Okay, great. So I'm going to read then my second call. If there are any other speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 62961 hashtag to get on the list. And I'm going to call out one more time in a second, but all this information is available on Twitter and on the live stream. And just going to check with you clerks before I do the third call. Anybody on the line?
Mayor Stewart, we don't have anybody else on the line.
Okay, I'm going to make the third call, and then I will take a 5-minute recess, council, to just give people a chance to call in, just in case they're not rushed. So people who want to speak to this, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 62961 hashtag to get on the list before the close of the speakers list. And that'll be my call. You can look on the live stream if you've missed those numbers. And council, we're going to take 5 minutes now to just wait and see if anybody else needs to call in. So council will come back at 6:37. Thanks very much. Okay, Council. Just we're 1 minute before. I'm just going to check with the clerks if we have anybody else on the line.
Mayor Stewart, we don't have anyone on the line.
Okay, Council. So now there are no additional speakers. The speakers list is now closed. And so let me flip to the script. Okay, so seeing there are no speakers, the list is closed. As few or no public comments were received in this item after 5 p.m. today, I suggest we now close the receipt of public comments and move on to hearing closing comments, asking further questions to staff, and to make a decision. Just wondering now if the applicant has any closing comments.
No further comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Staff have any closing comments?
No, we do not. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much. And questions for staff. Councillor Kirby-Young, up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of quick questions for staff, just based on following up on some of the concerns that our speaker, Mr. Fraser, raised. And the first one was with respect to parking concerns. And can you confirm if I'm correct, this would be subject to the requirements in the parking bylaw for RM 8A, which requires for row houses a minimum of 1 space provided, and that would be underground for every dwelling unit? Would that be sort of the application in this specific instance?
Thank you for the question. In regards to the number of spaces for each unit, it's actually 0.8
Okay.
parking spaces.
Thanks for the clarification, because I was going through the parking bylaw and it did say 0.8 spaces, but it said not including row house. So I just wanted to confirm that. So
Yes,
0.8.
I can confirm that if there's 45 housing units, that's strata, that it would be 38 parking spaces in total for this application.
And to answer your question, Councillor, it will be in compliance with the bylaw.
Okay. And is it not considered a row house then? Because I noticed it says including row house is 1 space, but not including row house is 0.8 space. So which categorization is this considered?
It is categorized as a townhouse.
Okay, and that doesn't qualify as a row house in the way I'm reading the parking bylaw?
This will be further reviewed at the development permit stage.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Kirby-Young, we don't have the bylaw in front of us. We just have some notes from engineering. It will be thoroughly reviewed by the engineering staff at the development permit process. And so we can assure you that we'll make sure that it's the proper ratio at that time.
Okay, but generally speaking, just give or take up to 1 space per unit would be expected.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
There would be off-site parking to speak to to address the speaker's concern. Is that fair to say?
It will all be on-site parking, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And then the other question or concern that I heard raised really related a lot to potential flooding concerns. And I note I think it's Appendix D in the report that there's reference to ensuring appropriate sewer and other work as a condition of approval. And I wonder if you can speak a bit more if you're confident that that would address any issues or are aware of any sort of specific issues with this particular site as it relates to sewage and drainage.
Yes, in the conditions of the report, there are sewer upgrades, and as well as storm and sanitary service to meet the demands of the project. And at the time of the DP application, the applicant will submit a ground water management plan that will be reviewed.
Okay, and do we typically keep any records, or is there any sort of cross-referencing with any issues of flooding that may have been reported in a neighborhood when we're looking at an application like this that may have occurred in an area?
That would be a good question for engineering.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Young. Yes, the engineering department will review all the current conditions and the historic conditions in the area as part of this application.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because I wanted to address those concerns directly. That's it for me right now. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Councillor Dominato, up to 5 minutes. Maybe on mute.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor. My question was addressed by Councillor Kirby-Yung around the drainage, so that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carr, up to 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you. My questions do follow up from the speaker. One question is the concern raised by the speaker regarding possible damage to the homes with the construction of sewers and the upgrades that we are planning in the area regarding waterworks. And he specifically talked about possible vibration damage. I wonder if you could have somebody answer that question. Is that a possibility or risk?
Hi, Councillor Carr. It's Cynthia Laff from the Rezoning Centre. Further to construction, noise, and damage is managed through the engineering department as well as our building inspectors at time of construction.
Okay. So there's no one from engineering to be able to answer that. Is that right now? I mean, I'm just asking if we have considered or if there is any potential, if we've planned to mitigate that somehow.
When there are any concerns, Councillor, with geotechnical, the geotechnical reviews are done as part of the development permit process.
Okay.
Councillor Carr, I don't believe we have engineering on the line because this is, it's a district schedule rezoning, and I apologize for that. We can get you a written answer. I apologize not having that information today. But as part of the construction phase, engineering does supervise that construction and oversees these, all the construction practices.
I think for me, thank you. I would appreciate getting that information. That it could be subsequent to tonight, but I think it would be important to also convey that to residents in the immediate area that have concerns around this.
Yes, ma'am, we certainly will. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Oh, and my last question, it has to do with the remark again by the speaker regarding infill and geology in the area, that there's a great deal of infill and that poses some additional risks. Is the city aware of that and managing that in terms of our reconstruction and the sewer separation projects that we're undertaking in the area? And she was accompanied by Representative Roger Williams.
Sorry, Councillor Carr, a geotechnical study will be required as part of the development permit.
And that will provide information relating to the soils and the conditions in the area, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hardwick, up to 5 minutes.
Thanks very much. So for Ms. O'Donnell, so the story is you do the rezoning and give the general height and massing and then punt all the design and engineering considerations to DP. Have I got it?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. We are rezoning to a district schedule tonight, unlike the CD1s that council is normally presented. This is a straight district rezoning, so all of these considerations are handled through the DP process. It allows us to do a simplified zoning. This particular application only took 4 months to breach council, so it's been a very successful process, but it does push most of the decisions to the DP part of it.
No, I spent quite a few years on the DP board, so I'm familiar with the process. What about the trees and is that stuff covered under the process? I mean, obviously all the utility and engineering stuff will, but what about the trees and the concerns about the canopy?
Yes, ma'am, you are correct. The trees are, again, part of a tree preservation plan that will be part of the DP process. And I also want to emphasize that during the DP process, the neighbors and the folks in the surrounding area will have quite an opportunity to comment on the application as it comes forward. The notification is very similar to rezoning, where we put up a site sign, we send out postcards, there's information available on the website. They can call in, email their concerns, and so we do provide quite a bit of public input during that process as well.
In terms of the number of units, we've touched on this before, but was this pretty much a set number for this FSR at this zoning that it was going to be in the order of 45 units? Or was it considered, were there any variables? That's just the zone capacity of what we would expect.
This is generally what we would expect in that area, given the height and the SFR. It will, of course, come down to site design. We do anticipate this particular number of units. Because we are zoning to a district schedule, not a CD1, there's not an opportunity to restrict the height or the number of units at council at this time. However, we can make all those considerations when the DP starts to work its way through the system.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hardwick. That's it for questions to staff that I can see. So we'll move on to decision. Do we have a mover for the recommendation?
So moved, Councillor Kirby-Yung.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Yung.
Councillor
Councillor Dejanova, seconder. Okay, and if I'll move this over to the main queue. If anybody would like to say anything on this, please put yourself on the list. Councillor Swanson, please go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time voting for this because it's in the Canby plan, and I was looking at the public benefits for that plan, and it looks like at this point there's about 2% of the total planned units are going to be renting for Hills, and 98% above Hills out of 9,002 units. And so, as I've said before, I feel like a broken record. We're creating a neighborhood in the Canby corridor that is basically excluding lower income people and even middle income people. And I think we need to change that.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby-Yung, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this project. I think that if we only have single-family homes, it doesn't offer an additional level of affordability, and townhomes do. They are infill and gentle density. I think the questions that were raised by our speaker are very valid, and I appreciate him bringing them forward. I feel comfortable, having looked through the referral report in detail, that any sewage and drainage upgrades are planned for and happen and will be addressed. And also the provision of off-site parking, which I think is always an important consideration in a neighborhood that's growing. I certainly appreciate the comments around construction disruption, living near a construction site myself. And that's something that's challenging to avoid, but people do have the opportunity to rebuild on the site. And I think it's just important that it's done in a way that minimizes the impact on the neighbors. But I think townhomes are a gentle form of density increase, and they do provide, along the spectrum of housing, another alternative and affordable option to single-family homes that are just out of reach, honestly, for most people now that are coming up and trying to lever themselves into a home of some type. And oftentimes two people working hard with solid incomes to do that. So I think we do need to provide a spectrum of choices, and for that reason, I will support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hardwick. Up to 5 minutes.
I struggle with this because, again, I'm still seeing a lack of evidence for the supply narrative. We've seen record amount of housing completions in the last 5 years, without a doubt, and the Canby corridor has been one of the largest recipients and will continue as long as this plan continues. And I'm hoping that we're going to see some data coming out of the Housing Vancouver strategy recalibration that will start to put some of this into better perspective. There's nothing wrong with the way that this has been handled. I understand why the expediting process has been put in place, and flipping things that are conforming into the DP process. I understand all of that. I just I call into question the underlying logic of this plan as we're looking forward. So this is one of the big challenges. We're asked to look at individual projects, but when you have concerns about the underlying plans, it puts it in a difficult position. So I just wanted to state that because I think it needs to be stated in the way that I think in a different way that Councillor Swanson felt she had to state her concerns. But mine are really for the veracity of the assumptions on which our policies are being made. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dejanova.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. I too will be supporting this motion, as another councillor has already mentioned, and I'm encouraged to see more townhomes and row homes, and I think that it's certainly something that I had heard. It's one of the reasons, in fact, that I ran for city council, knowing that we really needed to hit the right supply. And in February of 2018, I believe there were only 13 townhomes or row homes that were on the market at the time for sale, and there were even less, I understand, up for rent. And this was in February of 2018, and I'd put forward a motion that was specifically, and it does speak to this. It specifically spoke to this, and it was for the missing middle, and it asked staff to look for more opportunities for row homes and townhomes and affordability. And I think that this does that, and I think that we have to be a little more broad in our perspective of how we see this. We do have to consider this project and this application before us. Councillor Swanson's completely correct in that, but I also think about the homes that these families might currently be living in that actually they may be overhoused. That's what we're hearing as well, because there's such a big jump or gap between a single-family detached residential home and a larger condo, or rental unit, that I think that row homes and townhomes really will offer that opportunity. And something that I'd heard was that we needed more of them. And I think that increasing that supply will help us to make sure that we get to the right supply in our numbers, and I'm confident in that. That's what the data shows, and that's one of the reasons that I will be supporting this. That being said, family housing, it meets so many of our policies. Appreciate staff's, alleviation of some of the concerns, and making sure that the neighbors have their needs addressed, that there won't be huge disruptions or interruptions for them, more so than they usually are. So for those reasons, I will be supporting this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, I don't see anybody else on the queue to speak, and so I'm going to call the vote. Just waiting for Councillor Wiebe. Thank you, Council. That has passed with Councillor Swanson in opposition. Thank you, Council. And we're going to move on now to the second application. And if I can have the clerk read out the rezoning for 2735 East Hastings Street.
This is an application by Shard Developments Limited to rezone 2735 East Hastings Street from C2C1 Commercial District to CD1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 6-story mixed-use building with 63 secured rental residential units, a height of 21.1 meters, and a floor space ratio of 3.68 are proposed. 26 pieces of correspondence in support of the application and 7 pieces of correspondence in opposition to the application have been received since approximately 5 p.m. today.
Thanks very much, Council. Looks like we do have, yes, we do have a number of speakers to this, so we'll move on to the presentation from staff. Sorry, I'm just pulling my script up here. Sorry about this. But first of all, I just want to let anybody who wants to speak to this know, call 1-833-353-8610, participant code 62961 hashtag to get on the list. And the number is on the live stream. We have Simon J. from the Rezoning Center, who has 13 slides for us. So whenever you're ready, Mr. J., we can move on with the presentation.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me and can you see my presentation?
I can hear you, and I'm just looking. Yes, your presentation is on the public screen. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Simon Jay, and I'm the rezoning planner for this application, which proposes to rezone 2735 East Hastings Street under the Secured Market Rental Housing Policy, also known as Rental 100. The site is located in the Hastings Sunrise neighborhood at the intersection of Hastings Street and Slocan Street. It is currently zoned C2-C1, permitting mixed-use development. Sites to the east and the west are zoned C2-C1 and C2-C respectively. Both zones permit mixed-use development. One block to the east is a similar 6-story mixed-use building with a courtyard, approved under Rental 100 in 2016. Sites to the north on the other side of the lane are zoned RS1. The image shows an aerial view of the site looking north. The site is approximately 1,500 square meters in size. There is a 4-story mixed-use building immediately to the east and 1- and 2-story buildings in the immediate vicinity. The site is currently developed with a 2-story commercial building with retail at grade and office space above. There are currently no residential tenants on site. This area of Hastings Sunrise is rich with amenities. There are shops and services all along East Hastings Street. Hastings Street is part of TransLink's frequent transit network and includes bus routes 14, 16, and R5. Within a 10-minute walk of the site is Hastings Elementary School and 2 other elementary schools. All are under capacity. Also within a 10-minute walk is Hastings Library, Hastings Community Centre, and 5 parks. 5 licensed childcare facilities are currently located within 1 kilometre of the site for children and infants aged infant to 5 years old. The proposal is under the Secured Market Rental Housing Policy, also known as Rental 100. On November the 26th, 2019, Council approved amendments to the Secured Market Rental Housing Policy and retitled it the Secured Rental Policy. Item 3 on the public hearing agenda tonight are proposed amendments to the C2 and C2 similar district schedules as part of the new Secured Rental Policy. The rezoning application for 2735 East Hastings was received on July the 16th, 2019, and is being considered under the previous Secured Market Rental Housing Policy. This application proposes to rezone the site from C2-C1 to CD1 to permit the development of a 6-story building with 63 rental residential units and commercial uses at grade. The maximum height of the project is 21.1 meters with a floor space ratio of 3.68. The project is designed around a courtyard scheme to provide light and ventilation through all the units and create opportunities for bedroom units off the courtyard. The unit mix includes 22 bedroom and 5 3-bedroom units, which achieves a family unit mix of approximately 40%, exceeding the 35% required in the family room housing mix policy. As part of the Restart Smart Vancouver initiative in response to COVID-19, this project will contribute approximately 220 new on-site and off-site construction jobs during the initiative's recovery phase. This estimate is based on 2018 data from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Statistics Canada, and the Canadian Home Builders Association. The proposed maximum average starting rents by unit type are set by the DCL bylaw and shown in the green column. For comparison, the average market rents for newer buildings on the east side are shown in the blue column, along with the average household incomes required for each rent level. Not all units will be affordable to all Vancouver residents. However, the DCL waiver enables the creation of new, much-needed rental units. The red column demonstrates the high cost of ownership versus renting. These ownership costs are calculated using BC assessment data, along with recent sales prices, a 10% down payment, 5% mortgage rate over a 25-year amortization period, and $150 to $250 per month strata fee and property tax. If approved, all units would be secured through a housing agreement, which would prohibit the stratification and separate sale of individual units for the life of the building. A pre-application open house was held in June 2019 and was attended by approximately 12 people. Following submission of the rezoning application, a city-hosted open house was held in October 2019 and was attended by approximately 27 people. Details of the application have been available on our website with a staff contact provided for further information. In total, approximately 21 pieces of feedback were received. Key themes of support included the addition of affordable housing to a walkable area that is rich with facilities, and that the project is a good contextual fit. Key themes of concern included the building height and density, the increase in traffic, and the displacement of local businesses. In reviewing the application, staff have determined that the proposed height, massing, and mix of commercial and residential uses are an appropriate response to the neighborhood context. In response to increased traffic concerns, traffic calming in the lane has been included as a condition of approval, as set out in Appendix B of the referral report. The application proposes small commercial units for local serving retail and a larger restaurant unit at the corner of Hastings and Slocum Street, with the potential to maintain a large outdoor restaurant patio. Conditions to establish local shopping, such as including creating a fine-grained commercial frontage, have also been included in Appendix B. In summary, staff recommend approval of this application to rezone 2735 East Hastings Street from C2, C1 to CD1, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B of the report, as it meets the intent of Rental 100. If approved, the application would contribute 63 new secured market rental units. Thank you. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer questions.
Thank you so much. Just wondering if the applicant team is here to speak to the application. I know you have no presentation from what I can see, but would you like to speak to this or just answer questions?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would like to speak quickly if that's okay.
Please, yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much for considering our proposal this evening. I'm Byron Chard of Chard Development. We want to thank the community, both the residents and the business community, for their active participation in the process. The feedback we've received over the past 14 months of the community engagement has been extremely valuable and has allowed us to refine and, we believe, improve our proposal. We want to also take the time to thank staff for working with us over the past couple of years on this application. In the years to come, we're excited for the opportunity to bring employment and economic development to the Hastings Sunrise community. Once completed, we look forward to supporting locally focused businesses within our retail spaces and to welcome 63 new households and their pets to this vibrant neighborhood. Our applicant team on the phone this evening includes the architect as well as the traffic engineer, if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great. So now we're going to council have any questions? Yes. Councillor Dominato, up to 5 minutes, and this is your only time to ask questions that you have to the applicant. Please go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, my questions are to the applicant. Thanks, Mr. Shard. I'm just curious, looking at the design, I was having a hard time just understanding if the inner courtyard there goes throughout, like, is it open air in the middle all the way up through the building up to the top floor? Or is it, I was just trying to understand the actual design there of the courtyard.
So the courtyard is from level 2 to level 6, and so it does go all the way up the building for the residential units.
Okay, and then there on again, just trying to understand the model on the inside there, the courtyard, is there small balconies? If you just walk me through that.
Sure. So on either side of the courtyard, there's a walkway to get to the units. As you enter the individual units, there is a small outdoor space for the units in the courtyard. We view that as great for families to put strollers, items like that they may not want to bring into their home due to the wheels and getting it dirty. And then they also have outdoor spaces on facing either the south or the north side as well. But that is the little outdoor space that you see in that plan.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that. It's a little different doing it online. And then just with respect to, you mentioned a traffic engineer on the line, and you mentioned the feedback and engagement you had from the neighborhood. I'm just curious what kind of feedback you had specifically around sort of on the transportation traffic side and where the parking access is. Is that from the lane or from the alley?
Sure. So Peter, if you can jump in if you'd like to as well. So parking access is from the lane. So we are removing one of the current access to the site that is currently on Slocan Street, and that is moved to the lane side. The feedback we received from a lot of the neighbors in the community is due to the recent development down the street and the new bike lane. And so a lot more cars are coming down the lane and they're speeding down the lane, which is making residents in the area feel unsafe at times just due to the speed of car travel, plus also the increased travel. We've also heard recently, just due to COVID and the drive-through Starbucks down the lane, down the street as well, that they're seeing more traffic because of that. And so that's where we worked with city staff to incorporate speed controlling devices, speed bumps, in the lane as part of our application to assist the neighborhoods on that concern that they were having.
I appreciate that. It's great because that's exactly the feedback I've had. I spent some time talking to VPD that ended up having to be stationed one block east because of that drive-through and some of the issues they're encountering there. And then in terms of it's all market rental and was it 40% catering to 40% family units? Is that correct?
That is correct, 40%.
Okay. Great. I think I'll leave it there for now because there's others on the queue. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're on to Councillor Weeb for up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, my question's to staff. In the presentation, it talked about affordable units. I'm wondering, these units will be priced higher than the medium rental in the area. So how are these considered affordable housing?
So the applicant has indicated they're seeking the DCL waiver, so the rents that they are proposing come through the DCL bylaw.
But even though those rents are higher than the rents for new buildings in the area, it's still considered affordable because it meets that bylaw criteria?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Fry?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Thanks. This is for the applicant. Hi, Mr. Chard. I want to actually just right off the bat acknowledge that you mentioned that these are homes for families and pets. I didn't actually notice that in the referral report, and I think that's worth highlighting. I think that's really great. So thank you for including that in your proposal. I'm a little curious about some of your the retail strategy and how you're hoping to incentivize local businesses.
Hi, Councillor Fry. No, great question. Retail is really important to us. I think it's important to the neighborhood. As being a rental building itself, number one, retail is an amenity to the tenants in the building. It helps us lease the building better, let alone also just being an amenity to the neighborhood. And one being a rental building as well as being the owner in perpetuity, we do care about the retail use and the mix. We want it to be a complement that they're going to be in that neighborhood for years to come. With regards to how we're looking to service the neighborhood community feel, we have designed it with smaller frontages onto Hastings. We've also kept it the restaurant classification on the corner and to have that outdoor space. And we've been in conversations with a lot of the local businesses in that neighborhood to see if we're able to attract them into our space, especially due to some of the other rezonings that are being proposed in that area, to try to keep them in that neighborhood.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. And I appreciate that commitment to the neighborhood because it is such a vibrant neighborhood. I'm wondering also about, I appreciate the rationale behind putting a lot of parking in, as it's been described in through the bylaws. But of course, this is a pretty well-serviced transit neighborhood. And is this parking being built in such a way that it might be repurposable at a later date? I know that's been a consideration with some developments we've had come across the that are built in such a way that they might be repurposed?
It's a great question. It's something that we always explore because we don't build a building for 5 years. We build it for 60, if not longer. So yes, we do look at how we can repurpose it if it is into storage or different uses that would be allowed under the bylaws as bylaws change over time as market demands shift.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks, Mr. Chard. That's good for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Boyle, up to 5 minutes.
Thanks. I have a question following up on Councillor Weeb's comments, and it's really a question to staff, but I thought I would ask now in case the applicant also had a comment on it. And I'm just looking for a bit of help understanding why the DCL waiver rents are higher for every unit size than the average rent in newer buildings. My sense of the waiver was that it kept the rents just at least kind of on the slightly below the average market rent, and so I guess it's unclear to me why the waiver, if the rents are above the average market rent for newer buildings anyway. That is a question for staff first.
Some staff there to answer this?
Yes, Council. It's Yorda McNeil, Senior Rezoning Planner. The average market rental rate that the DCL use, it comes through CMHC, and it covers a significant part of the east side of Vancouver. It may not be specific to that local area, as opposed to the east side of Vancouver. And so you'll see some disparity between all of that when you're going through these numbers.
Okay, so maybe as a follow-up, I guess, what do staff see as the need for the waiver? What happens here if that waiver isn't in place?
Thank you, Councillor Boyle, sorry. As a reminder, the DCL waiver is through a bylaw. So, and because the criteria is set by CMHC, if an owner qualifies for that, then they're eligible to apply for the waiver. That waiver may be a rental rate that is slightly higher than the local area. But again, remember that it is market demand. And if the market in that area is lower than what you'll see in the DCL waiver, then that will be what the owner would be eligible or likely able to rent.
Okay, it's not really getting at my question, but so maybe I'll try to ask the applicant a different way. Is the project viable without the waiver, or can you help me understand what the neighborhood is getting in exchange for this DCL waiver?
I'd be happy to answer that. Without the DCL waiver, we'd be unable to deliver these 63 rental homes with 40% of them being family. The DCL waiver is quite important to us. It also unlocks us to be able to pursue CMHC financing and their programs. But overall, without the DCL waiver, we wouldn't be able to deliver these rental homes.
Okay, so in the balance of 4-story condo versus 6-story rental, the waiver is what tips the scale to make the rental viable over strata condo?
That is correct. It allows us to build rental.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just had one more question for the applicant I had meant to ask. It was just with respect to the commercial and retail grade. I appreciate hearing that you're trying to, support local businesses, but will they have, will existing businesses that are in that block have the potential to come back? Because I think there's a couple of restaurants there, to my recollection.
Absolutely. We work with all of our tenants to see if they have interest to come back into the property. We have been working with them throughout COVID here as well, pursuing the federal programs. So we work closely with our tenants to make sure that they have a thriving business. So we would look forward to working with them if they do have interest to come back in.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Councillor Swanson, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, so you're getting CMHC financing for this?
We are going to pursue it. I'm unable to answer for sure if we're going to be going with it or not. But we will be pursuing it.
Are there any rent restrictions if you do get it? Like, do rents have to be at a certain level if you get CMHC funding?
No, there wouldn't be. This is for their market rental program.
Okay, thanks. That's good.
Thank you. Councillor Carr, up to 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I actually was interested in the idea of CMHC financing. It's the first time I don't know why I haven't heard it before. That is it because it is a rental 100 project under city jurisdiction, or is it because it's 100% rental? Could you explain what the rules are that enable you to possibly get CMHC financing?
Absolutely. There's two reasons. The first and the largest one is it's rental. CMHC is very much trying to also encourage the delivery of more rental homes. The second one is because of the DCL waiver and locking in the market rent. So those are, not locking in the rent, but putting the maximum on the rent. And so for those two reasons is for the CMHC financing.
Right. The maximum on the rent is only the starting rent, though, isn't it?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks. I don't see any other questions from council, so we're going to move now to hearing from the public. If there are any speakers who wish to speak to this item, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, participant code 62961, hashtag to get on the list. And I know we have some speakers to this, clerk. I'm just looking at my, I think we have David Hutniak first.
Yes. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm hoping you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much. My name is David Hutniak, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of Landlord BC. I'm here on behalf of our 3,300 members, all owners and managers of rental housing, to strongly support this rezoning application to build 63 new, safe, secure, and sustainable purpose-built rental homes for our community. In our view, with the economic uncertainty facing British Columbians, renting one's home will continue to be the better option for many people. The challenge then becomes ensuring we have adequate supply of safe and healthy rental homes. I've spoken to you in the past about the need for all levels of government to create an environment that ensures the continued viability of the rental housing industry. This is even more critical now as our sector continues to navigate the current and future impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Please know that the challenges and uncertainties are exponentially greater for anyone contemplating the building of new purpose-built rental housing at this time. As I speak to you tonight, we are experiencing record low interest rates, and they will very likely remain at record low levels for the foreseeable future. Yet despite these record low interest rates, the economics of building new purpose-built rental have not really improved. In fact, the risks have increased largely due to the COVID-19 economic uncertainty. However, even at the best of times, lower cost of capital is not enough on its own to make rental projects viable. These projects require a comprehensive approach, including lower cost of capital, lower construction costs, reduced land costs, and a legislative framework conducive to the long-term operation of rental housing. That's a lot of variables that need to line up to justify building purpose-built rental, and frankly, this is not the full list. Our organization is recognized for its expertise on the economics of rental housing. In the past few years, an independent third-party real estate consulting firm, Coriolis Consulting, has been contracted by both the City of Vancouver and Metro Vancouver to undertake specific financial testing for rental development. Unfortunately, their work simply confirms what we've been saying all along. Like us, they've consistently found that even with rental incentives such as additional building height and density and a DCL waiver, return on project costs remain significantly lower for rental development than strata development. Like us, they found in their financial testing that under existing zoning for four-story strata building versus a six-story rental building, when the added height and density is available only to the rental developer, A 6-story rental building will not generate return on costs at the same level as a 4-story strata ownership building. I remind you that this project is being proposed under the city's secured market rental housing policy, which supports development of 100% market rental buildings up to 6 stories. However, even with the added height and density available to the proponent, the reality is it would be less risky and generate a better return on costs if the proponent built a 4-story condo versus a 6-story purpose-built rental building that will provide secure rental housing into perpetuity. So why would anyone build purpose-built rental housing? Well, in our experience, there are 2 primary motivations. First, like the proponent, most rental developers are building with the intention of retaining the buildings within a portfolio, knowing that the investment time horizon they are looking at is measured in multiple decades, not years. The other reason is that they genuinely care about their community and they want to build housing for local residents. It is for this reason they may be willing to proceed with a project despite the lower anticipated return on costs. So let's bring this back to the project before you tonight. You have before you the opportunity to add 63 new, safe, secure, sustainable, purpose-built rental homes to our community. We have a proponent who is prepared to take the risk, who is willing to accept a lower return on costs, who is focused on the very long term, and who genuinely cares about their community and wants to help to build housing for local residents. It is an opportunity that we cannot let slip between our fingers. That is why we are asking you to say yes to this purpose-built rental building project tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you do have a question, Mr. Hutniak, from Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Kirby-Young, please go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Hi, Mr. Hutniak. Thanks for being here. You dove right into my question, so I can do a quick follow-up, and that was really going to be what motivates, given sort of the economic disparities, somebody moving forward with a project such as this one, and I think you spoke to that really well. So I'll just clarify one point, and that is that to build a sort of a 6-story rental such as this versus the 4-story strata option, as you referenced, this is not a quick get in and get out the profit scenario. This has to be an applicant or proponent that's prepared to hold something for a long period of time. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And Mr. Chard specifically mentioned that in his earlier comments as well. I mean, basically, they are committed for the long term. They recognize that they're looking at 60, 70, 80-year investment of that kind of time horizon, and they're prepared to take the risk because of that. And so, like I said, they really deserve to be applauded for doing so.
Okay, and do you think that if council sort of has an application like this before it approves this, that sends a signal that encourages more of these types of projects moving forward? And conversely, if council were not to approve it, it makes the market skittish about building rental when it's more challenging?
Well, I think so, and I think that it's even more critical today because as someone who's heavily invested in this sector, I'm very concerned about what the future holds for the building of more rental housing with the economic uncertainty because of COVID. And, we need to keep encouraging this sort of construction. We will eventually get out of this, but, when you have a proponent before you with a great project, we should be saying yes and encouraging them to go forward with it.
Okay, and one other quick question, and I don't know if you'll have this or not at your fingertips, so you want to speak to generally, or you can speak to the specific neighborhood, but around what type of vacancy rates we're looking at for rental. I don't know if you can zero down to this neighborhood or if you want to comment more generally.
Yeah, I mean, there's still, a lot of uncertainty as to where vacancy rates are going to land and rents as well, but I can say that we are seeing a definite uptick in vacancies, and we are seeing the softening of rents. That's just the very reflects the elasticity of our sector. If when you have more supply, prices drop, and I suppose that is potentially one of the positives of this pandemic, and we're not unhappy to see that there is some softening in rents and more supply available. But, I'll have to admit, we're obviously concerned what the longer term outlook will be, and we really don't have the crystal ball for that right now, unfortunately.
So maybe not as good for the industry, but better for the tenant at the moment.
Well, sure. I mean, that's and that's not a bad thing. But we're looking at this from the sector's perspective in terms of continued investment in existing rental and obviously building new. There's a lot of very nervous folks in our sector right now, but we're trying to encourage them to continue to invest, and as long as we can continue to sort of have an environment that is conducive to that with financing and obviously with the programs that the City of Vancouver has like Rental 100, which is a fantastic program. I think proponents like Chard Developments will hopefully continue to come to the table.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hutniak. I appreciate you being here.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Councillor Carr, up to 5 minutes, please. Might be on mute.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hutniak. I'm intrigued by the comment you just made about the softening of rents, and maybe the increasing vacancies around rental accommodation. And I know that that's your sector, but I wonder if you have done any comparisons. The word on the street and in the news articles and business analysts is that the softening in the condo market is greater even, and that's both in terms of buyers and in prices. So I'm sure you're tracking that, but if you are, can you provide a comment to us about whether it's actually becoming, by comparison to condos, increasingly favorable for investment in rental housing within the city?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here, Councillor Carr. I mean, if you look at where we're at right now, international students are not going to be coming to universities in Vancouver this September. Immigration is closed off. Certainly, the home sharing platforms like Airbnb, the owners of, condo units that were in that short-term market are looking at the long-term rental market to sort of, maintain the viability of their investments. So we have a situation here where there is definitely, a nudging up of supply, and we believe that's going to continue. The thing is, we started from a position of near zero vacancy rates, so this is why I think the nudging up of vacancy rates will be somewhat gradual, and again, we're looking at if you're looking next 12, 18, 24 months. I mean, I think the hope is that we'll get largely past the negative economic impacts of the pandemic, broadly across the economy, but also obviously for our sector in particular. I mean, renting remains the intelligent choice for housing for a lot of folks. The past pre-pandemic, the city's own stats said 76% of all new residents rent. I mean, we will return to that greater state of normalcy over time. But right now, it would be, from my perspective, I would hate to see us not continue to encourage the building of more rental housing. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not like turning off a tap, off and on. So we need to try and create like an environment here for folks like the Chard Development to take that risk, because we are going to get out of this, somewhere in the future. And, you know, we have a great city. A lot of people still will continue to want to live here. And so I think it's just a good strategy for us to try to continue to encourage these projects to move forward.
Great. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks
and we don't have any more questions for you. Thank you for coming in. Next is, thank you, Sheldon North, our second speaker. Mr. North?
Hello? Yes, can you hear me?
Hi there.
Hello?
Yes, I can. Up to 5. Hi, we can hear you. Up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Sheldon North, and I am speaking in support of the proposal for 2735 Hastings Street. I've lived in Vancouver for quite a number of years. I'm a father, grandfather, and I've become more and more aware of the housing problems in the city, and I know that this is going to last for generations to come. I was motivated to speak because I'm very familiar with this area, and I really wanted to share my support for this proposal because it seems like an excellent project for this neighborhood. This type of a modest rental development is exactly what we need in this area, and especially with the rising rents, it's going to be, you know, more and more difficult for my children, my grandchildren to even think about buying. So, you know, being able to have affordable rental housing is really important for the city, for the people that live here. A place where they can hang their hat and call home, and they know that they're not going to be kicked out of their home because of, you know, something happening with a condo unit or something. I think that this is a great neighborhood to live in. It's got excellent transit, great shopping, lots of families, and it really does make sense. So, you know, based on this, I really encourage council to approve the 63 units for this new development. And thank you very much for listening.
Thanks very much. There are no questions for you. I just really want to thank you for calling in this evening. I am going to move on to our next speaker, or the next registered speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is Guy Johansson. Guy Johansson?
It's Guy. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
good evening,
thanks
Mayor
very much.
Stewart. Yeah. Good evening, Mayor Stewart and Council. My name is Guy Johansson, and I would like to offer my comments in support of Char's proposal to build secured rental housing and neighborhood retail at 2735 East Hastings Street. As a longtime property manager, I appreciate the need for greater access to secured rental housing and can attest to the strong demand for this type of housing in the East Village neighborhood. In my experience, there's a strong demand for rental housing on major arterials that are well served by transit and neighborhood retail. This is driven by lifestyle. People want to be able to commute to work without a car and live within walking distance to independent restaurants and boutique shops, which is what the East Village is known for. We don't see the same demand for rental housing in the suburbs because they don't have those amenities. More than ever, we're seeing tenants choose to prioritize lifestyle and rental affordability as opposed to car ownership. I have noted the generous appointment of bike stalls, which is a current query that many prospective tenants are concerned about, and this will act as an incentive. The proposed breakdown of unit types as per housing mix requirements is thoughtful and should provide financial flexibility to prospective tenants. In our experience, one-bedrooms are more in demand than any other type. The 3-bedrooms offer a true family option and should be sought after. I find the proposed rental costs compared with income requirements to be consistent with market dynamics that we see daily. From a demographic point of view, prospective tenants living in the immediate or surrounding area will be more aware of this development, particularly those who have established employment and lifestyle close by or currently live on the commuting line. Having said that, a project of this type will likely draw new residents, such as students, families, and downsizing professionals who are attracted by the opportunity, thus enhancing the community at large. East Village has changed a great deal in the years that I have known it, but I see it as a friendlier and more vibrant community than before, and the tenant and business feedback I've heard typically confirms that. I also expect that this project could help to create opportunities for people to access more affordable housing at other locations. While some people are not able to afford new market rentals like the one being proposed here, some of the new building tenants will no doubt be relocating from older supply, thus freeing up more affordable housing. As a property manager, I see tenants changing neighborhoods and homes based on their needs and their daily lives, and this project seems to address a wide variety of generational tenant requirements. The amenities will offer a defined difference for the tenants from a standard rental building option, particularly the courtyard and rooftop terrace. Light, air, and views are sought after by many tenants, but due to standard building designs typical of older properties, there is a shortage of these features in the city. Tenants will also note and be pleased by the many neighborhood amenities such as daycares, schools, community center, and parks, to name a few. These extras are often difficult to source on a walking distance basis for tenants and will create interest. When the project is considered as a whole, from a tenant perspective, the location and features will likely add up to a stable community environment ongoing. The benefits of this should be less turnover and a stronger community in the local area. While I'm not working on this project, I have worked with Chard in the past on the commercial leasing side. From this experience, I can share that Chard is very particular about the retail curation and seeks to secure tenants that are sensitive to the neighborhood context. This is particularly important in the East Village neighborhood, and I'm confident that Chard will target smaller independent retailers that contribute to the existing character of the area. Based on this, I would expect that this property will be attractive to local entrepreneurial business people and agree that it would add much to the character and charm of the neighborhood. The right tenant mix should be possible to achieve, given the intention and clean slate to work with. If you choose to support this project tonight, I truly think that this building will make a great addition to the East Village neighborhood. Thank you for receiving my comments. I hope that you will support this project.
Thanks so much. And there are no questions for you, sir. So thank you very much for calling in. I'm going to move to the next speaker. We have Pavel Sidlowski.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Vancouver City Council. My name is Pavel Sidlowski. I am a renter, a first responder, and I've been a local resident within the community all my life. I am here today because I felt it was important to share my support for the development at 2735 East Hastings Street. I strongly feel advocating for rental housing like this is important, especially in my community. I'm happy to see that more rental projects are being proposed in the area. Currently, finding rentals around here is quite tough. This site is a great opportunity to increase that rental housing stock along the Hastings Sunrise stretch. Another thing to point out is that this proposal will be able to offer rental options of not only 1 bedroom, but 2 and 3 bedroom units as well, which would be great for families. These kinds of projects will absolutely help to keep young working professionals like myself in Vancouver, while also helping to drive new renters into the community. Finding secure rental housing in an area with sufficient amenities is hard enough, but this community has it all, from parks to schools to shops and transit all close by. I think this development will be a great addition for new rental units and most importantly for renters. I really hope to see this project approved tonight. This is a great opportunity for our neighborhood and a great opportunity for Vancouver to flourish even more than it already has in the last few years. I appreciate your time and for listening. Thank you.
Thank you for phoning in, and there is no questions on the list for you, so thank you for your participation this evening. I'm going to move on to the next speaker, who is Stefano Taffoletto, and apparently clerk's Mr. Taffoletto is in person.
Yes, the speaker is just making his way in.
Great.
Good evening. My name is Stefano Toffoletto. I'm a Vancouver resident, and I oppose the CD1 rezoning of 2735 East Hastings Street. At the first open house, Mr. Shard, the developer, was asked why he had to build a 6-story building instead of a 4-story building. Mr. Shard stated, "I cannot build a 4-story building because it will not make me money." Yet the rezoning application that Mr. Shard applied for was under the Rental 100 project, with the goal to provide affordable rental housing in Vancouver. Clearly, these are two conflicting objectives. The Caslo at 388 Caslo Street was built under the Rental 100 project and rezoned to CD1. And city staff and the developer used this building as an example to support their cause to rezone 2735 East Hastings Street. However, the Caslo is a perfect example of why 2735 East Hastings Street should not be rezoned. Using the Caslo, I will present a few reasons why the rezoning will disrupt the flow of traffic, threaten public safety, and destroy our cherished community. With the construction of the Caslo, the city has created a greenway along Caslo and prevented northbound traffic down Caslo Street, diverting traffic down the alleyway between Hastings and Franklin. This has made it impossible for residents to access the alleyway. Drivers have also become aggressive and impatient with residents as we try to enter and exit our properties. Currently, vehicles block the entryways to our garages and park in residential-only zones and no stopping zones. The construction of the proposed building would only deteriorate the situation as it will use our alleyway for vehicle access. The alleyway between Hastings and Franklin cannot sustain another 61 resident vehicles. The increase in traffic in our neighborhood poses a threat to public safety. In addition to the safety of our community residents, Hastings Elementary is 1 block away from the proposed development and its alleyway. Children are especially vulnerable, and aggressive driving down the alleyway and in the neighborhood threatens the safety of school children who attend Hastings Elementary, particularly if insufficient parking is provided, because drivers will seek parking around the school area and increase traffic density near the school grounds. Parking is an issue we face currently that will intensify if the proposed development is approved. The proposed development will have 61 parking spaces for residents. This is not even adequate for the 63 units that would be built. This means that there's no parking for renters or their guests or the businesses of the building. And there's already insufficient parking for our guests and current businesses. For these reasons, a greater population density cannot be accommodated. Furthermore, the Caslo has made no contributions to the community. The stores that could afford the rent are the franchises of Dairy Queen and Tim Hortons, while the third storefront sits vacant. It is businesses like Rio Friendly Meats, Tamam, Bianca Maria, and many others that we cherish and make our community unique. It is these smaller family-owned businesses that will not be able to afford the rent of the proposed development, which, if built, will set a precedent for the building of similar developments, driving out the cherished businesses that make our community. In closing, I will remind you that a city-led community initiative that set out to create a vision for Hastings Sunrise. The Hastings Sunrise Community Vision asked residents whether they supported the construction of low-rise apartments with a maximum of 4 stories. And only 45 of residents approved the plan. Yet today we are discussing a 6-story development. The city recognized that adequate facilities like schools and parks and a plan to address parking and traffic impacts were conditions for low-rise apartments. Yet Hastings Community Center is outdated and there is no proposed parking and traffic plan for the current development. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And you do have a question from Councillor Dominato. Councillor Dominato, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for coming in this evening. I'd like to just follow up on your comments around traffic flows and traffic management plans, and if that was undertaken, because I do live in the neighborhood, so I know the challenges you're talking about at Caslo, and I've raised those with staff, but if some of those concerns were addressed or looked at in more detail, would you be more supportive of this housing?
Well, my problem is that the city is who deviated the traffic down Caslo Street. So it's the city that has created this problem, and now you're asking me to support. If I would be more supportive, I don't think I would, because I have to take the city in good faith in believing that you're going to resolve a problem that you in part created.
Fair enough. I mean, I think that the problem you've identified, I've asked staff to look at, the one on Catawba specifically, because it has been incredibly challenging, and staff have also committed to a further review around that entire neighborhood after they look at ADNAP. But I'm wondering about the businesses. It sounded like from the applicant that there might be an opportunity to work with some of those businesses, and would you find some comfort in that? If there was, I got some sense from the applicant when he responded about the retail component, that they're quite open to trying to accommodate. And I know those businesses you named, I live there, I frequent them quite a bit.
I'm 23 years old and I've lived in the community for my entire life, and there have been redevelopments for 4-story buildings that still have vacant storefronts. The developer is saying that he will go out of his way to ensure that these that new businesses that support the community will be put in place, but there has been no incentive put forward by city to encourage businesses to move into buildings that have already been built in the past few years.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming in this evening.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. You've got a question from Councillor Hardwick as well.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. You mentioned the Hastings Sunrise Community Plan. Were you part of that process?
I was too young. It came out in 2004. So that would have made me about 6 years old.
Well, you would have thought you would have been the beneficiary of that plan then, which you pointed out was made in good faith. So your key point here is that you would have been fine with the 4-story that was in keeping with the existing Hastings Sunrise Community Plan, but you take issue with 6 stories on the basis of height, density, and parking. Is that accurate synopsis?
Yes, that's accurate. I believe the parking is going to be a very big problem, and also transit's another problem. Everybody likes tonight to mention transit, but the R5, as personal experience taking it to UBC, is always congested at in early morning hours when people do need to get to work, and so are the other buses, the 16 and the 14. So saying that parking can be deviated to transit, well, that's not really happening because there is congestion on the transit lines currently.
Right, but the logic here is that the economics of the deal won't provide purpose-built rental without going up to 6 stories. That's the core of the argument, and building, because if you build it, they will come. And we heard earlier the acknowledgement that the demand on rental housing is declining. Do you have any? Your concerns are really ultimately about preservation of what remains of the community that you grew up in, and desire to keep within the established norms that were laid out in earlier plans, albeit haven't come together comprehensively in a citywide plan. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
That is true, but the other problem is this is a 6 stories on top of a hill, so I don't mind the 6 stories maybe at the bottom of the hill, sort of keeping the community uniform in appearance and whatnot, but the 6-story building at the top of the hill really sticks out like a sore thumb on top of that, and doesn't really keep with the aesthetic of the community that we have currently.
I'm just interested, and you don't have to answer this question, but as a young person in the early 20s, what prompted you to call in tonight?
What prompted me to come in is that I'd like to continue living in the community, and I believe that rental housing is important. But I do believe that keeping the city and certain aspects of certain communities the same is also important. I would like to live in my parents' house, which is just on the corner of 2706 Franklin Street. But I believe that with the increased density on our arteries, the city will eventually turn towards the inner communities where homeowners do live and build, as was mentioned earlier tonight, row houses or townhouses, and displace owners that have maybe made the sacrifices to stay within the city when they could have left the city. And that I think is important as well.
Well, thank you, and I hope you'll continue to be involved in the community and in the city. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it for questions. Thank you very much.
Point of privilege, Mr. Mayor, if I could ask a question? It's Councillor DeGenova.
Oh, yeah, sure. Councillor DeGenova.
Sorry, I'm reloading my queue here, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, please go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Thanks so much. I was hoping to just, in hearing the speaker's answers to Councillor Hardwick's questions, just the end of the last answer caught my attention, and that was specifically regarding, making room in the city of Vancouver. And I understand we're talking about row homes and townhouses in some applications, and this isn't that specific application that I was, I made those comments about before. I think we need a spectrum of housing. So my question is, now that I've framed it, do you think that we should be making room for families in the city of Vancouver, or that families should be expected to move out of the city of Vancouver if they can't afford a single-family detached dwelling, as you had mentioned on Franklin Street? And you don't have to answer my question, but hoping that you might share your perspective. Thank you.
I think we should make room for families, but one thing that I didn't mention with the Caslow building was that the three-story unit, a three-bedroom unit in the Caslow, which was zoned under the Rental 100, was subletting their three-room apartment on Facebook Marketplace for a renter. They were subletting one of their rooms. So you're saying that these projects are for renters to allow for families, but the renters in these buildings aren't families. They're usually single people that have to sublet the spaces out in order to afford the rent. And I do think we should make room for families. I do think that it is important, but I do think that at the same time, the redevelopment of the city and the way that it's going is starting to push out homeowners and punish homeowners who really did make a sacrifice to live in the city and to live in the community that my great-grandmother lived in and my grandparents lived in and now my parents live in. And I don't think that is right.
So would this, if you don't mind me asking, would this make, and of course you don't have to answer my questions, and I'm trying to be respectful, but if you want to live in the community that your parents lived in, would this make it, more likely that you would be able to afford to live there, or less likely?
Well, I'd like to own a home, so this would make it less likely because it's a rental unit. And if it was maybe a 4-story strata, I would be more likely because I would be able to actually physically own a home versus rent a home.
Well, stay tuned in the fall for my 14th motion on affordable home ownership. But until then, thank you very much for making the time to speak with us tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And that's it for questions. Thank you for coming in this evening. And I will move on to the next speaker. Let's see here. We're moving on to Matthew Stay, who's on the phone.
Yes. Hi.
Number 6.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you. Mayor Stewart and members of council, my name is Matt Steyer. I'm a resident of East Vancouver, an urban planner and a local renter. I'm here to speak in support of the project located at 2735 East Hastings. This project is easy to support. It will add 63 new rental homes, 40% of which are 2 and 3 bedrooms, without displacing any residents. It will add vibrancy to the neighborhood, both through the influx of new families and the renewal of aging commercial space. It is well situated on major transit routes, close to community services and amenities, and within walking distance of grocery stores, retail shops, and restaurants, to name a few. I also appreciate the modest, neighborhood-friendly building form and design of the proposal, including the use of step backs along the laneway. A diverse mix of market rental housing options is an essential component of any thriving city. It allows newcomers, young professionals, and families to get established. It allows them to move to more suitable housing as their needs and households evolve. And it allows them to find their neighborhood and establish long-term roots. I should know, since I moved here 8 years ago, I've lived in a variety of rental housing types across a variety of different neighborhoods, from new high-rises to basement suites, from Kits to East Van. Over this time, I've come to appreciate the city's diversity, its unique neighborhoods, and strong sense of community. Over this time, I've contributed professionally, economically, and civically to the vitality of the city. Being able to find suitable rental housing has been essential to my ability to grow and thrive here in Vancouver. In closing, purpose-built rental projects like these are vital to ensuring Vancouver remains a diverse, inclusive, and desirable place to live, both for current and future residents. I strongly encourage you to support this project, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. You do have a question from Councillor Fry. Councillor Fry, go ahead, up to 5 minutes. Councillor Fry? Councillor Fry, you're mute, maybe?
Sorry, Mayor, that's a holder. I didn't did not request to speak.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, thanks, Mr. Stayer. That's it. There's no questions for you. I just thank you very much for calling in this evening. Clerks, thank you. I have on my list Don Coney and Lisa Rybin. Okay, so we have Lisa Rybin is in person?
On the phone.
Oh, on the phone. Okay, it has a person in my list. So thank you very much for calling in. You have up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Stewart and Council, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to today's hearing. My name is Lisa Reben, and I live directly behind the proposed development site, and I am opposed to the development and rezoning application. A year and a half ago, developers built the Caslow building at the corner of Caslow and Hastings. This addition to the neighborhood has done nothing to support our community. I appreciate that the developers may have had good intentions. However, the end result was a fail for our community. I learned from a current tenant that the inner courtyard children's playground is rarely used. There is still a vacant retail space along Hastings Street a year and a half later. There are 2 metal benches that are located outside the building and the retail space for the entire area of the building. With the exception of grass plants near the entryway, there is no other greenery, nothing that promotes community interaction, just concrete coldness and franchise businesses making profits. Char Developments now wants to develop another Caslow-style building at the corner of Slocan, directly behind us. They want to increase the current zoning at the top of the hill to 6 stories with the same type of retail and dwelling structure. How does this enhance our community or promote community in any way whatsoever? I sent some pictures along. I don't know if they're viewable to you right now. There are just 5 of them, but basically they show what we have right now on the Hastings block, and then that includes some storefronts and community interaction. And this is what we would be giving up for the bare concrete look shown in the other photos currently at the Caslow. Our community is comprised mostly of single-family homes, 4-story buildings, and legal rental suites. We have a strong, diverse, and interactive community. I believe the decisions made today by Council around this development will set a precedent for future developments, and if the current plan is approved, it will destroy the community as we know it. We need developers in our area to create storefront space that allows smaller East Van businesses to thrive and create community spirit. We need new buildings to add to the neighborhood, not more bland concrete emptiness. The proposed development is 1 block away from an elementary school that is our community hub. The developers need to be accountable to community to do something that promotes the priorities of the council and the priorities of the inhabitants of our neighborhood. The Vancouver City Council made a decision in the past to protect and preserve Commercial Drive versus the type of development proposed for our Hastings Sunrise neighborhood, which is a vibrant place to live. A building like the Caslo makes money for the developer, but that profit comes at a cost, and the neighborhood is being forced to pay that cost. It's not fair, and something council has the power to change. I urge City Council to please support the East Van community and put the community first rather than the profit-hungry developers who do not have our interests at heart. I hope you consider our concerns in a tangible way, allowing us to work together to achieve a bustling community that can retain its heart and soul. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And you do have a question from Councillor Hardwick. Councillor Hardwick, please go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Thank you for coming in and talking to us today. Your general point was that our job is to represent the community and not the development industry. Am I getting that right?
Partially, yes.
Okay, but we all know
about our community.
That's great, as well you should be, and you know that there needs to be additional density introduced into the neighborhood.
Fair enough.
So,
but at
what
this
form?
This particular corner, it's an extremely busy corner. It's not an area. I forgot what my thought pattern was there, but yeah. So it's just we just don't want another Caslo building on this corner. It would just do nothing for the neighborhood. And I don't know if you can see the photos, but it just adds nothing. There's no interaction. There's no community. So that's where I'm going with this.
I guess I'm asking, well, if not this, then what?
So a lower structure that would match other buildings in the area, 3 and 4 stories along the way that are already condos that are already there, whether it be condos or affordable rentals, something that has interaction outside. So patios, coffee shops, smaller places. The current developer has much larger spaces as a retail space and fewer of them. So the new occupants won't be able to afford like they do now. It's going to be much more expensive. So we're not going to get those family mom and pop shops moving in there that we're so accustomed to having in our community. And we need a developer that is willing to figure that out and bring that to our neighborhood. And I'm open to that. I mean, I think there's lots of developments out there in the city and that are doing that for other communities that I see. But this Caslo type building does nothing, and it's not East Van.
So gentrification generally, as well as the height, bringing in, making it impossible for local stores. I think the developer did say, or the applicant said earlier, that they were looking at trying to make it attractive to local stores. I don't know if you heard their presentation, but there did seem to be concern and interest in doing that.
As well. Yeah. But from the plans that they have, the spaces that they're offering are huge. So there's no way that some of these smaller businesses could possibly move in there and afford it. I'm sure. I'm obviously that's a guess, but it's just and the storefronts themselves, if it's going to mimic what the Caslo is, and they didn't show any outdoor sort of areas where people can, mingle or what have you. And East Van is about interaction. We're a really strong community.
I hear you, but that's great. That'll give us some more thought about questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councillor Fry. Thanks. You have more questions, Councillor Fry, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just trying to frame in my head where the Caslo is. Is that the old Burger King?
So it's where the old Burger King used to be. Yes.
So it was like a Burger King and a big surface parking lot.
It was
on that site. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to give it context because I'm just yeah. So and what's there now?
So what's there now is the Caslo building. So
right. No. Sorry, I meant for the retail. So it's got the rental building and then
Tim Hortons. There's Tim Hortons, a physio, and a Dairy Queen. And then there's the one or two large retail spaces that are still unrented.
Interesting. And do you think that they're unrented because they're large retail spaces that just aren't? You're saying
my guess is that they're
too expensive, not accessible to the
they're too large. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I guess trading a surface parking lot with a Burger King for a Tim Hortons and a DQ that's technically a DQ replacement for the other one that's gone.
I get that, but why not do something that adds to the community? You know, like it wasn't a great addition. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, I totally respect that. You know, it's
okay.
Definitely. I probably shouldn't say this, but it's one of my favorite parts of Vancouver. For the
I know,
the
I
vibrant
love it
retail.
here.
Yeah, no,
and I'm worried about it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we all appreciate that concern. I mean, I have some faith in this developer that they are true to the intent to support local business, but I hear what you were saying 100%. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. You do have another question from Councillor Dejanova. Councillor Dejanova, please go ahead. Might be on mute, Councillor Dejanova. Councillor Dejanova. Clerks, can you just check and see if the councillor is still
double muted, Mr. Mayor? My apologies.
Okay, no problem. I'll
on
start.
WebEx and on my device here. Thank
no
you.
problem. Go ahead.
I'll ask my question again. Sorry, and maybe the speaker can hear me.
No worries.
You talked about living in East Van and what makes it East Van, and I mean, I live in, a distance away from here, but I live in Hastings Sunrise. That's my neighborhood.
Okay.
And I've always thought that it was kind of, the people and that area, but also Hastings Community Center is a great gathering spot. It's a couple of blocks away. We have a ton of green space. Do you think that that's, I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be looking for more ways to engage and bring people together, but I would say that, that's that has probably more gathering spaces in that neighborhood than the neighborhood we just looked at, maybe having some family housing or townhome or row home units in. So just wondered, I mean, like what I'm hearing is families can't afford to live in the neighborhood and kind of can't even afford to find, rental housing for themselves. So just wondered if you thought that was a trade-off, if that's what I heard from staff, if you had any feelings on that, affordability for families to live there and having those public amenities versus those private rental amenities.
I mean, a lot of the, I know a lot of the people that work in the area and live in the area, a lot of people that rent in the area. And I hear from, everybody's very concerned about this building and what it's bringing to the neighborhood and what it's like and what it might mean for the future of the neighborhood too and other buildings. So, I know that, and I go to all the facilities in the area, whether it be the library or the community center, and I'm grateful for those things. I don't think they can support all the new people coming into the area. That'll be a challenge for sure. And I really want to see these developers accountable to the neighborhood and putting in places if that type of thing is going to happen that represent the neighborhood at the 4-story level or a 3-story, whatever, and just keep with the look and the feel and the integrity of our space and our neighborhood.
Thanks very much. I'd like to ask you one more question. You don't have to answer. Of course, I'm sure the mayor's mentioned, but may I ask, do you live in the neighborhood?
I do. I live directly behind the proposed development. I've been here.
Thanks. You don't have to tell me exactly where. It's just nice to hear your contacts. So thank you for sharing that. I really do appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you for taking
That's all my questions.
That's it for questions. Thank you so much for participating today. And we're going to move on. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next speaker, who is Anthony Purcell. It's Anthony Purcell.
Hi, good evening. Hi
there.
Yes.
I just noticed on your sheet. Just noticed on your sheet you haven't indicated if you're a resident of Vancouver. I'm going to ask you, and then you can move right ahead with your 5 minutes.
No, I am not. I live in Coquitlam.
Okay, thanks. That's fine. I still welcome to participate here. Go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to address council this evening, and it's nice to be able to participate by phone. I would like to support the rezoning application before you this evening. I'm sharing my opinions from the perspective of a renter and someone who uses a wheelchair and requires access to accessible housing. I work in Vancouver and spend a lot of time at hospitals and rehab centers and serve a client base that requires access to secure, accessible housing. Given my experience in this area, I can attest that finding this type of housing is not easy, which is why I'm pleased to support this project, which offers 100% adaptable units that can be easily converted into accessible homes for people with mobility challenges, such as myself. This project is well suited for multifamily rental housing along a major transit route with direct service to employment hubs in downtown Vancouver and Burnaby. I currently live in Coquitlam, as I mentioned earlier, but would love to find housing closer to work so that I could spend less time on my daily commute. More projects like this are needed in Vancouver, which, if approved, will deliver housing options to serve people with mobility challenges from all different socioeconomic backgrounds. And having some variety in these housing options would also be very welcome. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. You do have a question from Councillor Dejanova. Councillor, please go ahead, up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thanks very much. And thanks very much for making the time to speak with us. One of my passions and something that inspired me to run for City Council was accessible and adaptable housing. So in looking at sort of this project and speaking in support of this, is this the type of place that you would like to see sort of more of when in terms of accessible housing, as you had mentioned?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the places, it seems like for me personally, as well as the people that I work with every day, sometimes we have to make a decision between something that is accessible with something that is, with something that is nice. I mean, a lot of accessible places are, ground level, in different parts of town. That's a part of town that I've always love to have the opportunity to live in, but it's very hard to find something that meets both mobility as well, or mobility challenges as well as nice. It's very well laid out, and I'm very excited at the possibility of having something like this developed.
I do understand that. I've actually kind of looked at sort of accessibility throughout different neighborhoods in our city, and affordability is also an issue as well. So thank you for sharing that. You had mentioned, and you don't have to answer my question, but you, when the mayor asked if you lived in Vancouver, you offered the information that you live in Coquitlam. Or would you like to possibly live in a place like this one day, or in this neighborhood? May I ask? Is that one of the motivations for?
Yes.
Calling in to lend your support to this project?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, even today, for example, that's an hour's drive home for me today. I would love the possibility, like listening to one of the other speakers talk about, growing up and living in Vancouver. I would love that opportunity. Just not as easy for myself, which is why I live out in Coquitlam. So look at an opportunity like this, and I think this is great. This is something that I've waited for a very long time.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you for sharing your experience and your perspective with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for questions, caller. Thank you very much for calling in today.
Thank you.
And council, I am looking for the correspondence here, and I've got Aaron Robinson. Just before we go to Aaron, I just want to read out, of course, that if you would like to speak to this item, you can call 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 62961 hashtag, and that will get you on the list. Those coordinates are also on the live stream and on Twitter if you want to participate. Thanks so much. And now we're on to our next speaker. Please go ahead.
Hello. Hello.
Hi there. Hi there.
Hi. My name's Aaron Robinson. I'm a resident of Vancouver, renting a home with my partner in East Van. And I'm proud to support this 100% adaptable, secured rental housing development at 2735 East Hastings Street. I'm pleased to see a focus on family housing and a significant reduction of the parking requirement on a major transit route and significant bike parking with proximity to the Adirondack bike route. I also wanted to share a bit of a personal story. My partner and I were hoping that we might be able to own a place in East Van, and just last night spent some time looking through properties. And after about 3 hours and a couple beers, we retired to bed pretty deflated, thinking that the dream of owning a home in East Van may not be a reality. So we will have to keep looking for rental. We'd like to start a family soon and grow that. So seeing more family homes come on the market, on the rental market, is extremely promising for us. But I would urge you to help create more opportunity for us to stay in this community by supporting this development. And that's what I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. You do have a question from Councillor Kirby-Young. Please go ahead, Councillor Kirby-Young, up to 5 minutes. Might be on mute. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks for being here. I have one question for you, if I might, and that is really, there's some councillors have expressed concern, and we have to consider this particular application, but that we're bringing in rental, but it's not affordable enough, or it's not below market rental, or they're concerned about it being sort of similar to market rates. And what's your response to that on this specific project?
I mean, rental rates will move with the market. So the more rental that's available, landlords will have to compete with each other. So even the rent that we have right now, I mean, our landlord, luckily, we haven't seen an increase over the last year. We've been here almost 2 years now. And as long as we keep adding rental, it means that our housing costs are going to remain pretty stable. But the second that we stop building rental, we start to see those prices increase as more people want to live here. There's more competition for that rental. Landlords can be pickier and pickier about who they're going to pick, and they're going to go to whoever has the most money. So if we don't meet the demand, and rents are high at the market rate, and if we're going to find a way to drop those, we really need to keep building more rental. So, well, of course, anything below market is great, and I understand 40% of this development, or is it 40%? The 40% are secured rental, but any other affordable rental that's built is important. But market rental is also important to add to our housing stock.
Okay, and you mentioned, one other quick question, you mentioned secured rental, and how if you're in a situation and you shared your sort of personal perspective right now of where you are, and you're going to be need to looking at rental for a while longer, how important is having secured purpose-built rental available, like this project?
It's better than looking at legal suites in a house where somebody can say, I want to take that space in my house back. It means that place is ours as long as we can pay the rent, and as long as we follow the rules of the landlord laid out. So having secured rental is extremely important to make sure that if you are going to start a family, you can raise your kids there. They can go to the same elementary school. You don't have to jump across town to a new rental. And it is very important to stability and creating community. I've heard some other speakers talk about how it ruins neighborhoods and ruins community, but community is really about the people. And as long as you can keep people there to develop those connections and relationships and interactions that some other speakers were talking about, you can build community. But it's about keeping people there. And as long as we have secured rental, that means that people could stay where they are. It doesn't mean they have to jump around year to year as their leases come up.
Okay. Thanks very much for sharing your experience. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We have questions Yep, there's questions from Councillor Dejanova as well. Councillor Dejanova, please go ahead.
Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Just a quick question for you on, you'd mentioned sort of ownership, but you are supportive of rental. I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, I share. There's a speaker previously who mentioned that he wasn't in support because he wanted to own, but I'd love to own my own place. That would be wonderful. But again, like I'll reiterate, community is about the people who are there. And I have a ton of friends who live in the community who are renters and likely will be renters for the rest of their lives. And, it's not worth owning a place if you can't see your friends in your community who you've already built. So rental is definitely an important part of building that community.
Okay, thanks. So what I'm hearing from you is it's about the right supply, and that doesn't just mean one type of supply. Is that fair to say? I don't want to mischaracterize what you're saying, but
Nope.
if we're looking at
Absolutely.
rental, this would be something you support in that category.
Yes, absolutely. We need rental, we need home ownership, we need rent to own, we need opportunities for people to have a stable life and to be able to move in, and that means having a diversity of housing.
Okay, well, I still keep pushing for affordable home ownership. Right now, we have this before us, so I'll consider that, but thanks for making the time to share your comments.
Thank you for the questions.
Thank you. And I'm just looking here, and that's it for questions for you. So thank you very much for participating tonight.
Thank you.
And no problem. Thank you. And we're moving on to speaker number 10, Aaron Robinson.
I think that was Mr.
Oh, it was.
I
I'm
think
sorry.
that was
You're
Aaron
right.
Robinson.
Thank you. Yeah, Lucas Christ. Lucas Christ on the line.
Thanks for hearing me today. And
no problem.
Just a
Please
shout out to Seth, the young man who spoke earlier. Good to hear other young people speaking in support of their community. So I'll be speaking to oppose this application. I read through the referral report from the city, and it does speak well upon it. It seems as if they think the creation of rental units is in itself a tremendous act of goodwill. We've heard from a speaker before that apparently a 6-story rental building provides a lower return for the developer than a 4-story stratified building on the same site. I can assure you that no business would go through the trouble to apply for this rezoning to build a 6-story and do so while losing out on profits if a 4-story option would actually be more financially viable. I will remind everybody that this is a for-profit development. And, the developer's obviously maximizing the number of units by applying for the zoning change to allow the 6-story. I don't think the application should be approved on an assumption of the developer's goodwill. Instead, we should look at the impacts on the people who live and work in the Hastings Sunrise community. So just to look at the numbers again, what they're applying for is an increase of 7.3 meters from the maximum height currently in place, so increasing to 21.1 meters. As stated previously, it's on top of a hill, so that obviously maximizes the impact and the shadow that results from that height. And of course, it doesn't match the character of the Hastings Sunrise neighborhood, which is mostly 2- and 4-story buildings. It also does not meet the required 15 feet setback and offers a 13-foot 3-inch setback instead. The building is going to block the balcony views to the downtown and North Shore, which is currently enjoyed by residents at the building adjacent, 2741 East Hastings. As has been mentioned before, the Caslow at 2805 East Hastings, that's another 6-story in the area. I question why we're letting this set the precedent for new developments when clearly the character of the neighborhood is 4 stories. There's many other recently constructed residential and commercial buildings in the area which are only 4 stories. The proposed average rent for each unit size we saw, that's the maximum allowed by the development cost levy by law, and as mentioned earlier, higher than the median rent in the area. Also worth to note that they're asking to waive $1.3 million in development cost levies, which would result in lost benefit to the city and taxpayers. Vancouver, the city has eliminated this exemption on for-profit rental housing, but the application remains eligible for that exemption as it was submitted before the cutoff date. So if approved, the proponent would only pay $148,000 in development cost levies. The building is marketed as affordable rental housing, of course, with families in mind. But I just want to look at the numbers a bit more closely. The building is heavily weighted towards small units. 60% are one bedroom, 52% of the units are smaller than 600 square feet, and 21% of the units are smaller than 500 square feet. There's only going to be 5 three-bedroom units. So I think this is really not affordable housing for families, but majority small apartments for single people or young couples with generous incomes. This, of course, speaks to the developer's primary intent, which is to maximize profit and not provide a development which complements the character of the neighborhood or meet the city's goals for affordable housing. Currently, there's some well-loved local businesses on the ground floor at this property. We know they're going to disappear and be replaced by commercial chains or remain vacant. And we can see this has happened at 2805 Hastings down the road with the Tim Hortons and Dairy Queen, which are, I think everybody can agree, disappointing additions to any neighborhood, let alone one as diverse as Hastings Sunrise. The comparison of the cost to rent versus cost to own I find a bit misleading. For example, they assume 10% down payment on a home, which
you're just at 5 minutes.
Okay, sure. So
you do have some questions, though.
Can I
so I'll move on.
Or? Okay.
You're at your 5. I'm going to move you to Councillor Dominato. Go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. A couple of quick questions. Do you live in a neighborhood?
Yep, I live next door.
Okay, great. And then I guess the question I have is, you've obviously done a lot of analysis on this proposal. What would you prefer to see there, if anything, in terms of housing?
Sure, yeah, that was kind of in the concluding bit I had there. So I believe a 4-story residential and commercial space would best suit the character of the community. I'm not opposed to that property being redeveloped. It's in sore shape right now, and I think the addition of housing units to that building would be great for the neighborhood. I just think it should be 4 stories and not 6.
Okay, so it's largely by the height, and would you preference over rental or strata?
I mean, I'm an owner myself. I would prefer for it to be strata. That provides, both opportunities. And I think that ownership can be an affordable option as well. I don't think we need to see rental as the only affordable option here.
Okay, thanks for your feedback tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Hardwick, up to 5 minutes for questions. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Really appreciated your analysis and was quite touched by your comment that the building is marketed as family friendly, but there's only 5 out of the total number of units that are actually 3 bedrooms. I was interested in hearing your conclusion. Would you indulge me?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I was just going to speak to the cost of ownership. As I said, I think that can be an affordable option.
Well, you made a remark, I presume, about the staff presentation that compared the cost of renting to the cost of ownership.
Yeah, that's right. Ownership obviously represents an investment, whereas the cost of renting makes no future return. So from a financial perspective, they're not directly comparable, right? I wanted to ask whether the proponent knows what the commercial units would rent out for and how that would compare to what the current businesses are paying to rent.
Thanks
I
for
don't
asking.
think you get.
Yeah, we can't have a back and forth here. Just you're providing statements to us. However, councillors can ask staff after this what the estimate would be.
Good point. So we'll ask staff the question about the commercial rents. You mentioned the height, and you felt that 4 stories would be more in keeping, but you also commented on the size and composition of the units themselves.
Mm-hmm.
At 4 stories, I think it's been well established, it would need to be market strata condos as opposed to providing the rental opportunities. But in your view, the trade-offs, I mean, ultimately this is about trade-offs. It doesn't come out in balance.
Yeah, I mean, I think a 4-story building would be welcome there. And, a 6-story is maximizing profit for the developer. And really, we're not seeing this family affordable, benefit for the community that's being sold to us.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks. No other questions. So that's just want to thank you for your participation. Council, we're at the end of our list. I am going to call for the first time for other speakers. If you want to speak to this item, 1-833-353-8610, participant code 62961 hashtag, and that's on the live stream. Are there any speakers on the line or in person, clerks?
Yes, I am on the line. There's one.
Oh,
yep,
okay.
Wayne Bird.
Great. Thanks for calling in. You just let us know your name and if you're a resident of Vancouver, and proceed with your 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Wayne Bertrand. I am a resident of the area who rents. Been here 18 years, and I'm also a business owner in the area who's been leasing for about 18 years. So I'm going to speak kind of philosophically as a resident and as a business owner. Philosophically, I mean, I guess I approve this development because, of course, I think we can agree that the future is building up, not out. We can't increase urban sprawl. And this beautiful city like Vancouver will only have more people coming to it in the future, and we need more housing, whether it's rental or ownership. As a resident, I've been renting here over the years. I've been very fortunate because I'm a business owner and I have a lot of contact with the community. I've been very fortunate, but I know how hard renting is and buying is almost impossible. So I believe more rental units would be good. As a business owner, I approve this, although short term it's probably going to be good for me. Long term, I will probably suffer the same fate where I am renting right now will be demolished and turned into a residential retail. And my business right now largely depends, not large, but there's a great benefit from the drive-by traffic. I will lose the parking that is associated with my business, and I would love to stay in the area. However, if I go through the same process of where my area gets redeveloped and I lose my parking, the only way I could move in or stay in the area would be to have enough walk-by traffic. And I can tell you right now, with the way that Hastings Sunrise, this part of the corridor is set up, that the mix of 2-story and low density buildings, my type of business would not survive here. And I've heard some of the residents say, we need more moms and pops. We need more moms and pops. Well, I'm a mom and pop, and I'm doing very well because of the drive-by and the community. If there is not more developments like this along the corridor, the present population and of homeowners, single-family homeowners, and the limited, higher-rise buildings that we have, it doesn't support the mom-and-pop operation. There's not enough people in the area to support a whole bunch of mom-and-pop areas. And the proof of that is there are numerous empty leases along the corridor, not only in the New Caslo, but up and down Hastings in this area. So unless Hastings, I believe, unless Hastings continues to have higher density, higher rise people, which will increase the walk-by traffic, you're not going to get more moms and pops because the lease rates are okay for now because it's East Vancouver. The taxes, the business taxes, are 50% of your lease. So if we don't get more density increasing walk-by traffic, you're not going to get more moms and pops. And that's all I got to say.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming in this evening. Or calling in at least. I'm just checking, and I don't see any questions for you. Thank you very much for participating. I'm going to move on and ask the moderator if there are any additional speakers to this item.
So there are a few new callers that have joined. If anyone in the room at the moment would like to make a statement, please press *1 on your keypad to queue up.
Thanks so much. And again, this is for the 2735 East Hastings Street rezoning. Anybody, moderator? This is my second call for additional speakers, 1-833-353-8610, participant code 62961 hashtag.
Again, it's *1 to queue up. Nobody has joined at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to call a third time.
We do have someone that just joined. So we have Cole Merrick. Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Thanks very much. You have up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Please go ahead whenever you're ready. Up to 5 minutes.
Hi there. My name is Cole Merrick. I'm a East Vancouver resident, and I have been all my life. Most of my comments have already been made, so in short, I just wanted to say I agree and support the project at 2735 East Hastings Street. I believe we need more rentals in Vancouver, and this area especially. I think the site would be a perfect place for rent units to be added to the neighborhood. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you. I do not see any questions from council for you, so I am going to call the third and final time, 1-833-353-8610, 62961, and just ask the moderator if there's anybody else on the line at the moment.
There is. We're just grabbing their name at the moment.
Okay. Council, just so you know, after this, I will take a 10-minute recess just to let any final speakers kind of filter in. And then I've had requests for a bio break as well. So we'll hear from the speaker or two, and then we'll take a break for 10 minutes.
So the next speaker is Melina Albanese. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much for calling in. And could you let us know if you're a resident of Vancouver, and then please proceed right on to your 5 minutes.
Okay. My name is Melina Albanese, and I am a graduate student, renter, resident, and previous employee of a small family-owned business in the Hastings Sunrise neighborhood, and I am opposed to the development. I am calling in because while I have multiple concerns, I am primarily concerned about the implications toward traffic density and safety that this project will cause without meeting the goal of providing affordable housing. I noticed there has been lots of emphasis on the fact this is a well-serviced transit neighborhood, and the developers have mentioned there are many bus routes that service this area. Living in the area myself, I've experienced that these bus routes are at capacity, waiting for the R5 pre-COVID, of course. Many buses would pass me by before I was able to get on to get to university, and I fear congestion of bus routes will just become worse for existing residents of Hastings with the addition of 60-plus rental units. And I think a smaller number of units should be considered, such as a 4-story instead of 6-story building, since it is clearly just for profit. Another main concern is the alley and the parking access to the proposed development. I frequently use the alley to access shop services and to visit a friend who lives near the proposed development. I have frequently noticed it is congested, there's no room when trucks are parked in the alley, and especially during the construction stage of this development, I fear vehicles using the lane will just worsen this problem that already exists. The developers have failed to clearly state how parking access to the development from the lane will be feasible and not make this problem worse. Parking in the area is already congested and can't sustain the number of vehicles. I believe this point was previously mentioned by speakers. And particularly near the school, I would be concerned for the safety of school children since this is the only parking for non-residents directly of Franklin Street to park. And I just like to say from past experience when I worked at El Buco Pizzeria that had to close down. It was a small family-owned business. Customers who came in would frequently say, you know, they would come in more, but there just really wasn't enough parking for the small businesses along Hastings Street. So the increase in traffic, I don't think will be good for the community at all. So in summary, my primary concern is the community cannot sustain the increased density of six-story rentals. Given the increased transit traffic and vehicle traffic this will incur, will I support the increase in rental units across the city of Vancouver? I am concerned this particular development is advertised as affordable housing, but it is not. In reality, $1,942 a month for one bedroom is not affordable housing, particularly for groups such as students who previous speakers have suggested the rental units will attract. I have rented the Cambie corridor for the past year before now moving back to Hastings Sunrise to live with my parents who charge me less rent. Although the Cambie corridor, I did pay less than the minimum rent proposed for this development on Hastings Street for a similar one-bedroom apartment, which is amazing. And given that housing is just not affordable at this proposed development to an individual or to students, I just don't think the six-story rental in Hastings Sunrise is worth the harm to the community in terms of the pressure on transit and traffic that it will impose. This development is simply not conducive to increase affordable rental housing, and I urge the city and developers to recommend perhaps a four-story building, which could still provide additional rental housing without the same impact on parking and traffic in the area. Thank you.
Thanks so much for calling in. I don't see any questions for you, so appreciate you stating your perspective. And I'm just go to the moderator. Is there anybody else who's queued up to speak to this?
There are no new callers, Mr. Mayor, that have joined.
Okay, Council, then I'm going to take a 10-minute break just to give remaining speakers, anybody who wants to speak this time, to call in. And the number is 1-833-353-8610, code 62961 hashtag. And that's on the live stream if you've missed that. So, Council, let's come back at 8:55. We'll be back at 8:55. Thanks very much.
Please hold while the council is on a short recess. The call will resume around 8. Please hold while the council is on a short recess. If you wish to queue up to make a statement, you may press 01 on your keypad. The call will resume shortly. Thank you. Hi, council. We're at 8:55, and I'm just going to check with the moderator if there's anybody else that signed in for this item. No one else has queued up to make a statement. Thanks very much. I'm going to, seeing there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. I have called 3 times, and as fewer no public comments were received on this item after 5 p.m., we're going to close the receipt of the public comments and move on to hearing closing comments and asking further questions of staff and to make a decision. Does the applicant have any closing comments?
No further comments, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Staff have any closing comments?
No comments.
Thanks very much. Councillor Dominato, I've got you on the question queue.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of questions to staff, if I may, at this time.
Please do.
It's just a follow-up on some of the comments that we heard from residents this evening and queries around, particularly around the traffic management flow. I'm not asking specifically about parking, but traffic management. There will be a traffic management plan as part of this proposal. I didn't see it referenced in the referral report. If staff could speak to that.
So as a condition of enactment, the development will be responsible for a number of transportation improvements. So there's public realm improvements around the site, some upgraded roadway and sidewalk lighting, and also some lane improvements too. And so for the lane improvements, they will be putting speed humps in the lane to slow down traffic, also a pedestrian crossing at Slocan Street, and also some lane lighting in there too. For transportation, they also meet the parking bylaw as well. So, and they could also submit a transportation demand management plan as well if they would like to reduce their parking further.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. The other question I have, it's tangentially related to the traffic considerations that people brought up, is whether as part of that work you will look at the other end of the lane, Caslow, and the concerns around that closure, because it has been brought up previously by residents, by the BIA, and the challenges. It's like literally half the block is closed. It's been made one way, and it's related because it's connected to the alley. And I'm just wondering if that will be looked at, because it is causing a lot of challenges. I've observed it firsthand.
Thank you for that question. We will ask engineering to look at that further at the DP stage.
Yeah, I think it would be welcome, because it is pushing traffic into one location. It's making sense. I'm just wondering if staff could speak to some of the questions and comments raised about the market rents for this building, and that they'll likely be higher than the average for East Side development. So if you could just speak to that a little bit more.
And Council, I'm just going to ask if people could mute their microphones. I do hear some background noise. If you're not sure, could you just check your mute is on? Councillor Domino, please go ahead, or staff with the answer.
Thank you, Council. It's Yarda McNeil, Senior Planner again. As I said earlier, that the market rents in the area are somewhat different than the average maximum rent that the DCL bylaw prescribes. And again, that DCL bylaw rate comes from CMHC based on a larger area beyond this local neighborhood. So you'll see a little bit disparity, but at the end of the day, the applicant has confirmed that they need the DCL waiver in order to make the project viable. And frankly, that the rent will basically be what the market can bear in that area. The other aspect of the DCL waiver, as noted earlier, is that those rents are secured and regulated by RTA rates moving forward. So I hope that helps answer the question.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dejanova, up to 5 minutes.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question regarding the retail space for staff, and if there was any conversation with the applicant as to what type of, I'm not asking to know what specific retailers, but what type of retailers might be welcome there, and also wanted to know if there was ever a consideration, or if because it's so close to green space, that there could potentially be the opportunity to turn that retail space into childcare, with the park being quite close by.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. We haven't had the discussion with the applicant about childcare. We have talked to them about retail rental, and they have indicated that they have not leased out the spaces yet. But they are very interested in local retail, and that's what their design is, small frontage retail.
Okay. Thanks. And then to the other part of that question, are you able to comment on childcare and any possible opportunities, or if there might be some allowances considering the proximity to green space? I know it's not exactly, it doesn't have its own outdoor space perhaps, but it's very much adjacent to a lot of green space and large parks and nearby community centers.
Thanks for the question. So yes, the site is surrounded by lots of green space. It's not something that we have explored with the applicant. We would normally flag that up at a much earlier phase, but we can explore that for future applications.
Okay, but thank you very much. I'm just wondering if the applicant did choose to, I mean, right now it's zoned for commercial only, so there's no possible way that if a child care center, a licensed child care center wanted to open there and move through our processes for spaces that are already, we're not talking about applications, we're talking about spaces that they're looking to perhaps make into childcare. through our current policies. And I know some of those policies, although they say that you have to have on-site green space, there have been exemptions before, exceptions made for guest licensed childcare in nearby areas to green. Just wondered if that was a consideration, like if that would even be plausible or possible, considering the zoning of this application.
Councilmember, this is Teresa O'Donnell, Deputy Director for the Planning Department. You pose a very interesting question. We're kind of around the table discussing whether or not it would meet the requirements of daycare. We're not certain tonight that it would. It's certainly something that we can explore with the applicant going forward. As you noted, those green space, open space requirements are usually required on-site, but it's something we could certainly investigate as we move this application forward, if the council is to approve it.
I'm not hearing you say no. And Mr. Mayor, I can't see who's on the queue at this very moment, but happy to move the motion when the time is right. Okay, yep. I'll go back on the queue, and happy to move when the time is right. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. Go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm curious around. I appreciate some of the comments made by residents around the retail street front fabric. I do think that's a very vibrant retail area, and I can appreciate the context about how it is at risk as we see, some of the newer development is bringing with it the kind of Tim Hortony type thing, and there's that big Shoppers Drug Mart that's great if you need to do 24-hour shopping, but it's a big kind of footprint that's inconsistent with that granular retail vibe that I think a lot of people, myself included, really appreciate about Hastings Sunrise. So I'm wondering if there's any policy or even covenant or anything that I mean, I appreciate the applicant's intention towards local small business, but I did look through their portfolio, which is very handsome, but it also, I'm looking at one of the properties on Johnson Street in Victoria, and it's Flight Center and a Tim Hortons, and I'm just wondering if there are tools as a city that we can really use to reinforce, or if there's any policy that protects that kind of unique retail fabric. And I guess I'd follow up to that. If are there any clues that the pro forma can give us about the types of businesses that would be able to afford these retail spaces?
So we don't have that information for the types of businesses that would be able to afford the retail. For policy, we don't currently have any policy, but staff on the Employment Lands and Economic Review team are bringing a report to council in fall of this year, which is considering issues identified by businesses and residents. It will discuss options about addressing commercial tenant relocation and the type of tenant mix.
Sure, but in the meantime, there's no immediate policy or even condition that we can apply to this to ensure that we're. And I'm really curious if there's no clue at all that the pro forma gives us around what types of business would go in there. I would think that give us some sense.
So at the development permit stage, we can prescribe storefront whips, but there is no policy to protect. No policy.
Okay, so I appreciate that last bit. There is the ability to add a bit of a condition at the DP stage. I'll take that as a yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Fry. On to Councillor Dejanova you just have a minute and just about a minute left.
Just happy to move the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks very much. Do you have a seconder?
Councillor Kirby-Young.
Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Young. We're on the main queue now for debate. If anybody would like to speak to this, please put themselves on.
I'm not sure how I got to 2 minutes and 25 seconds, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to reset those timers. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm happy to support this application and speak in support of this application. I did just want to follow up with staff. I was typing out a question and just taking a look at some of our childcare policies and wondered if through you, Mr. Mayor, I might be able to ask a point of information follow-up. I just wanted to make sure my question was clear. I'm wondering if there is a possibility, not if we could designate or if this would be required to be childcare, but wondered if it's possible, considering it's nearby but not exactly adjacent to green space. So if I could ask that as a point of information, that would be
One more
great.
time then, if part of this building could be designated for childcare?
Well, not designated. I just said I'm not looking to designate anything. I just wanted to understand if our policies, considering that it's not exactly adjacent to green space, although very, very, very close to green space, if our policies may be aligned with that. I just wanted to know
could somebody
if the
put childcare
developer
in this? I
wanted
gotcha.
to do that in their
Okay.
retail space. Apologies,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. I was maybe going too fast and trying to be a little too quick and
I gotcha.
trying to be a little more efficient. Thanks.
That's
But
over.
could I ask
Point of information to staff. Then could somebody leases one of these commercial units put a childcare in there?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the clarification, Councilor Dominato. Yes, we have checked the bylaw, and daycare is an allowable. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Daycare is an allowable use, and so yes, we will absolutely explore that possibility for you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. And again, I've heard loud and clear from people who not only live in Hastings Sunrise, and as I've mentioned before, it's a place that's near and dear to my heart. It happens to be the neighborhood where I live. But I also have heard from people who currently live in the neighborhood who are concerned that their young children won't be able to live here one day, that are concerned that they themselves will be priced out of the housing that they're in, and for whatever reason, either looking to downsize or to rent. I think that this is why we need to look at the right supply, and I think that this is adding to it. I understand that we have to look at this particular application, but when I look at rental and I look at our policies and considering the thought process of council tonight, for instance, talking about the DCL waivers and the reasons for those, why numbers work with, four-story condo, as most would put it, and why we instead would need 6 stories to make a rental pro forma work. I think that it's really important, that we keep these policy conversations going, but we also are, this applicant and every applicant that comes to us has been working together with our staff, and thanking both the applicant and the staff. I do look at this being an opportunity for families to have family-sized units. I understand that sometimes families are a little bit different, as one of the speakers had said, and I thank speakers who came up to speak in support of this and in opposition. In fact, some of the speakers who spoke in opposition, what I heard from them is they wanted affordable home ownership in their communities. They didn't necessarily say they didn't want rental in their communities, but that's what they were looking for themselves. And that being said, I respect that, they spoke in opposition to this. So many people, though, did speak in support of this and said that this would be a welcome addition to the neighborhood. And I look at sort of the numbers that we need to move forward towards to, make sure that the missing middle isn't missing any longer. And I'm happy to support this project, and I'm hoping that it will be able to move forward and offer some much needed newer rental housing stock in Hastings Sunrise. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Swanson, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah. So the lowest rent in this development is $19.42, and the median renter income in that neighborhood is $46,000 a year. And you need $78,000 a year to be able to afford the lowest rent in this building. So that means that a median renter household in that neighborhood would need an extra $32,000 to be able to afford to move into a 1-bedroom. And we've heard that rents can go up after the first tenant leaves, and we give a DCL waiver. and the applicant may get CMHC financing with no restrictions on rents. And we have the issue of gentrification of rents for small businesses like the Rio Friendly Meats. Will a building like this with brand new storefronts gentrify retail rents? Probably yes. So I think we're giving too much when we have no guarantees about gentrification of business rents and have really high residential rents. Somebody said that this was a project that promoted diversity and inclusion. Well, it probably does promote diversity and inclusion of people whose incomes are over 76,000, but it won't. It will exclude everyone who's under that. And I think we need more affordability if we're going to be giving incentives.
Thank you. Councillor Fry, can I ask you to take over while I make a few comments on this building?
Sure thing, Mayor. It'd be my pleasure.
Thank you. And I'll just reset the timer. So, Council, I think Councillor Swanson actually makes an excellent first few points, is that it is extremely difficult to digest some of these numbers sometimes in terms of the cost of housing in this city. This is one of the most privatized markets in the entire world, with 99% of the value of residential property being in the hands of private homeowners. And so it is extremely difficult to do anything other than rent something at the market level. So, and in fact, hearing from the applicant today, the option is to build a 4-story condo building that needs no permissions from us, that would sell at $800,000 $100,000 million, somewhere around that range, perhaps in that area, or to provide incentives by the city to turn it into a rental, not a subsidized rental, but a secure market rental. And that is from my understanding, is the constraints of the market in this city. It's a very expensive place to live. So that is why policies like MERP are helpful. They start to begin to supply that below market rental. But that still is not good enough. We're just a minimum wage person working 40 hours a week full time makes just around $30,000. So two folks making that amount of money are in the $60,000 range. That still is out of rentals at that level. Brand new rentals at that level are extremely hard to come by, and that's why we need at the bottom end of the market, the low end of the market, we need help from the federal and provincial governments to supply that shelter rate and up to minimum wage. So folks living with disabilities that are on fixed income, seniors, all that bottom end of the market needs government subsidy. And unfortunately, we don't have at the city level, with only property taxes to rely on and some utility fees, we don't have the money to invest in that kind of housing. And that's just not in Vancouver. That's right across the entire country. So, our options are limited here, but our choice before us is build a 4-story condo or follow the program as designed and have 6 stories of rental. And that really is the choice. Now, on this particular site, I'm quite familiar with it. I've been in the Slocan a lot, but also my dentist of 30 years was located in that building until 2 years ago. And having been on both floors, that building, it's time to go. It needs to be changed. The construction wasn't great, I don't think, when it was put into place. So it's not going to stay the way it is. It needs and the permitted usage is 4 stories of condos or the 6 stories of rental. So I am absolutely going to vote for the 6 stories of rental because of a lot of the reasons we heard from speakers today, that they want a place, they're realizing they cannot purchase. I mean, to buy a single family home in that neighborhood is well beyond the means of the vast majority of, I would say, renters in this city. And so
quality secured rental from quality companies is a very, very important way to go. And it's the only option in a lot of cases when the CMHC, this is their financial package, and this is what they're trying to incent. So I think this is an excellent project. I know that staff is going to do their best for the development permit stage to try to accommodate some of the requests from local residents, but I, for one, would very much like to see this built. But more than that, I'd be really disappointed if instead we approved 4 stories of condos. Thanks very much. And if Councillor Fry will allow me, I'll take the chair back.
Please do, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Dominato, up to 5 minutes.
Yes. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the various speakers who called in this evening and came in person. I obviously live in the neighborhood, so I know the area quite well. I've also frequented the Slocan quite a bit myself. I do want to comment a little bit about on the rental side and those choices between a strata development and a rental. I think that we know, and we've heard this repeatedly, that we don't have a healthy vacancy rate when it comes to particularly purpose-built rental, and there wasn't a significant investment in purpose-built rental over the last 30 to 40 years. And so I see this as an opportunity to contribute in that way. I personally appreciate as well that it will add options, whether it be for young people, but also for individuals who may be wanting to downsize as well, and maybe don't want to. We do have seniors, for example, who have owned their homes and want to kind of move away from that home ownership and want something smaller, and so it does also provide another option that way as well. I really appreciate that it's pet friendly. I commented on another project recently because that is often something that we don't have, and it brings much comfort for residents. For this particular design, what I really appreciated was the interior courtyard, and also there was some consideration for stepping the building back at the back on the alley side, because it is adjacent to single-family homes. And so I did appreciate the design, and I think that was commented on a few people, sort of the uniqueness of the design. And I think that, while I appreciate there were some callers as well and residents that don't support a 6-story there, and they don't think this is the right mix, there were also concerns raised around traffic flows and management, and that's the one thing that I appreciate. There's going to be some changes made in the alley to deal with safety and around speed. However, I do think that we need to look a little bit more holistically around the neighborhood, and I flagged that in my earlier comments around some of the traffic flow changes that were made that were quite small but have actually contributed quite negatively to sort of how people get around, and I'm hoping that will be looked at as part of this. But at the end of the day, I think it's a worthy project. And I did hear the applicant speak to a real commitment, and I sensed an earnestness in wanting to work with the businesses. There are some existing businesses there and restaurants, but also other local businesses, and to potentially utilize and access that commercial space. And I hope that is the case, because it's true. What I hear regularly from residents is they really do appreciate those mom and pop shops, and they appreciate being able to walk to their local businesses. They don't have to get in their car. They can do all their shopping in the neighborhood, and that's really important to people. And I think that we find that in most of our neighborhoods is people, that walkability component and being able to shop locally. So I will be supporting the proposal, and I'll end there.
Thanks so much. Councillor Hardwick, up to 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. This has been an interesting one, and I come back to several comments, starting with the right supply, knowing that we're providing or enabling the right supply for Vancouverites. And the truth of the matter is, right now, we don't know what the right supply is. We're in a massive shift through this pandemic, and the right supply will be revealed. I'm concerned that we're pushing forward too quickly without giving enough time to recalibrate. I've heard some interesting statements here, a binary choice between a 4-story of condos and 6-story of market rentals. It's not just that simple. what we heard from the people in the community was that there was an appetite for 4 stories and the belief that there would be commercial development that would accompany that, that would be more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. So we're not just choosing housing typology, we're considering its impact, and in particular, as Councillor Swanson pointed out, towards gentrification that will no doubt have a precedential impact on this part of Hastings. I would urge us in all of these things to be giving ourselves enough time to see where the market settles. We're still acting like this is pre-COVID when we talk about vacancy rates. We know that there is a large function of that is related to the labor market, which has been profoundly impacted by this pandemic. So we just don't know where we're going to land yet, and yet we're continuing, not just with this application, but with this plethora of public hearings and rezonings we're going through, pushing things through as quickly as possible because of this belief that we're in some massive supply shortage where everywhere we look around us is construction. So I would urge us to be thinking very carefully about our stepping forward and thinking about policy changes. And this is an illustrative one. We're assuming that we still have the same conditions that are going to affect the market, or the market is going to adjust accordingly, as we've heard. But there is no doubt that change is before us and that the labor market is going to have a big impact on that, and that's not going to be satisfied by the number of construction jobs that are created here. So in closing, I think we need to digest not only the numbers in evaluating whether it's more sensible to build affordable condos. One of the speakers who was he identified himself as a younger person, owns in the area, and I didn't get the impression it was a single family dwelling, but was able to have affordable home ownership in a condo, not a single family dwelling. And we're obviously looking in the case, certainly the 5 3-bedrooms that are contemplated in this rental are going to be significantly higher than any kind of local salaries would support. I just urge us to think not only, though, about the dichotomy about rental versus condo and 6-story versus 4-story, but on the impact on the community, because these decisions that we're making now are going to have a real profound effect. So this is a real important one for us to be thinking about, and I just wanted to express that. Thank you.
Councillor Fry.
Yeah, this has been an incredibly thought-provoking and challenging project for me. I mean, at first blush, I think it's no surprise to most on council that I'm not a big fan of the DCL waiver for market rental. I don't think this meets the affordability kind of ask that I'd like to see. And $1.3 million DCL waiver is a not insignificant amount. That said, to Councillor Hardwick's points, the idea of 4-story condo versus 6-story rental, I mean, I think clearly 6-story rental imparts an additional benefit at large to the community, being the community of Vancouver and people who live here. I think on transit-oriented development, it's important to add, and I don't think the difference in height is especially consequential. But what I do worry about is the impact on one of the best retail strips in the city, and one that is known and cherished for some of the fantastic small businesses that have been there and served so many of us so well. And I do look at the new development in the neighborhood, and I see, you know, the Pharmasaves and the Tim Hortons, and I worry that will be an opportunity to this building will be an opportunity to inject that into the community even more than we're seeing it all happening now. But then, you know, rental building, pet friendly, I appreciate all those pieces, and I struggle with 1.3 million in DCL waiver. At the end of the day, though, it comes back to me for the retail typology. So I've submitted an amendment, and it's a bit unusual, I suppose, but but it would give me a little bit more certainty around the intention that was given by Mr. Chard to support the local business. I believe him and I want to take him at his word, but I really want to see something more intentional in this document that really supports that idea. So I've submitted this amendment. I realize it's kind of unusual and it's not a typical amendment, and I hope that staff have had an opportunity to look at it and even contemplate if it can be included.
Second, Councillor Dominato.
If only further to speak to it, I guess.
Actually, just wait before we do anything. I just, again, because it's quasi-judicial, I just want to review it to make sure that it is in order. And I appreciate you've run it by staff, but I do have to check it. So I'm going to stop your timer, Councillor Fry, and just take a minute to take a look here. It's the first time I've seen it, so I'll come right back to you, Council. And I just ask you to mute. If you haven't. Thanks. Okay, Council, I've heard back from the clerk and law. What I was concerned about, just that, of course, this is a distinct process, a discrete process where we're looking at a rezoning, and this does touch on the DP process, which is a separate process. But checking with staff, it is lawful because it just means with the applicant working with staff. So this is in order. Sometimes they're not, but this one is. So Councillor Fry, I will start up your clock, and you can finish speaking to this.
Thanks, Mayor, and I appreciate the review of this and the notion that it is legal. This is something that's, I think, important to me. It's important. I know it's important to Councillor Dominato, who lives in that neighborhood. I know it's important to the shops that are down there, and I really hope that this can be a way to make these kind of things work. And I hope that our staff can help guide the chart development in this direction and really do make some awesome contributions, because I think that this project does have some really fantastic contributions, like the courtyard, like the pet friendly. It is expensive. It is a DCL waiver, but I think this is sort of one of the pieces that makes me happy and makes me able to support it. So,
thanks. And Council, I will have to call for a seconder again. Was there? I think Councillor Dominato, are you prepared to second this one again?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, so I will move us to an amendment queue, and I've got Councillor Dejanova on the queue for this.
Thanks so much, Mr. Mayor. Just in sort of looking at the amendment and the way that it's worded specifically.
Sorry, you're a bit faint. You're a bit faint, Councillor Dejanova.
Can you hear me better now, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much. Sorry, my Wi-Fi can be spotty, and Bell's not much better here. So, in looking at this and considering I too, live in the neighborhood, it's important to me to consider sort of some of the local shops. But in looking at the retail street character, and locally serving independent small business. It says to protect and enhance the existing. But in that area right now, there's a Shoppers Drug Mart in the Gold Corp, which I do support the Gold Corp Center for Mental Health, although it's unfortunate that, last term we saw that, corporate names like that couldn't go on buildings. That was amended out of our sign bylaw. Hopefully that's another thing we'll discuss another day. But there's a gas station down the street a little ways away. There's, Burger King, or not a Burger King anymore. I think they put a small Dairy Queen in. There's a Starbucks. There is a locally owned liquor store, and there's the restaurant that was there, the Slow Can, or that, will be replaced. So I'm not quite sure that I understand what is meant by existing character. Is it on that block? Is it on that street? I believe that there is character to Hastings Sunrise and to the East Village, but I'm just a bit concerned that when the Development Permit Board looks at this, or when our staff are looking at this, are they literally taking a couple of blocks into account? Because if so, we have a Petro-Canada there, as I'd mentioned, a Shoppers Drug Mart there, Starbucks there, a Dairy Queen there, and a couple of other what I would call multinational corporations and newer chain restaurants. So, I mean, if it was clarified more, or maybe I can ask a point of information through you, Mr. Mayor. But would they be looking at more of the same in that specific area? Because if so, that kind of concerns me for what's there currently. Because this amendment does say existing, correct?
Yeah, I guess you'd have to ask the mover of the amendment, because I'm sure staff wouldn't know what the intention is at this point. So
no, but I'd need to ask staff their interpretation of it if it were to pass, correct?
My presumption would be this building only, because that's what we're considering here, and that's the scope of this. That's the scope of our decision here this evening. I could ask if it's a point of information. I'll ask staff if they have anything else to add.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, it's because of the wording of it says the existing traditional. So existing and traditional, sometimes that works together. In this case, what's existing in and around?
No, I would say it's just to do with this application, because that is the scope of this hearing this evening. So, in fact, we wouldn't be allowed to talk about adjoining buildings, I wouldn't think, because of the discrete nature, just to this combined just this
street
address.
Character. So, what does the street character come from? From what's there right now?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you, but whatever is being
considered. Mr. Mayor, that's why I have a question. Sorry.
Okay. And did you want the staff to attempt an answer?
I'd like for staff, because staff will be moving forward with this if it is passed. And I appreciate what Councillor Fry is trying to achieve. I'm just concerned about the unintended consequences here.
Thanks. Staff, if you want to take a shot at that, we have about a minute left in this portion.
Hello, Mayor and Council. This is Paul Tang, Senior Development Planner. Our thinking with respect to how this particular condition can be enforced would be likely something that has to do with limiting the overall frontage of a particular business along this particular development. We could make sure that the storefront isn't any wider than 25 feet, for instance, so that the experience of the pedestrian walking by this particular development would be quite rich and varied with many businesses. And furthermore, that the way the commercial retail units would be subdivided wouldn't exceed 25 feet or 50 feet, something like that. I do think that we would have to be careful about that overall size, because small businesses can be up to 50 feet in width in commercial retail unit sizes. We see that all the time along Commercial Drive, along Hastings Street and whatnot. Certainly anything bigger than that would start to get a little bit less mom and pop like in terms of businesses.
I'm aware of my time, Mr. Mayor, but
yes.
I'm also aware that as the mover of the motion, I have some extra time.
But
May
not
I
the
use
amendment.
It to just, oh.
No,
oh,
not in this amendment. Yeah, so I'm going to have to stop it there.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
I don't see anybody else on the queue, so I'm going to
call the vote on this amendment. Just waiting for Councillor Bly. There we go. That is passed with Councillor DeGenova in opposition. Thanks very much. We're back to the main queue. Councillor Fry, you have about 2 minutes left. 1.5 minutes.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, I appreciate that amendment passed, and I appreciate that really gives me a little bit of confidence in how this project can be managed. I'm still troubled with the DCL waiver, but I'm prepared to support this project in general. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Carr, up to 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm this one's got pros and cons to it, but I'm happy that Councillor Fry put forward an amendment that adds another pro. For me, one of the big questions is, do you go with rental units at 6 stories, condos at 4? I think anytime we can go with rental over condos, it's better for the people of Vancouver. Over 50% or around 50% rent in this city, and I think renting as a society modernizes in many parts of the world, certainly Europe, renting becomes a way of life for people. Eastern Canada, Eastern United States, we see the same thing. So I do think more rental is better, and it certainly is over time more affordable, as rental units may start off expensively, but as those buildings age, they do provide more affordable rents, as we know, because we all have concerns about the loss of that affordable rental. Not happening in this case, however. Another question I often ask myself is around shadowing of these buildings when they come in at higher heights than the current buildings. Shadowing analysis in this report makes it clear that the shadows to the north fall on the garages of the properties to the north, not on their outdoor space, which I think is good. This has an outdoor patio, which I like, and rooftop amenity space. One thing that I feel strongly about, though, in terms of height, is the step backs that create as you walk along a street. A different sense of a building. So if there's a 6-story building, but it's stepped back in the top 2 floors, it really makes a difference. And this building does on the street front and also in the back, in the rear. And I think that not having that that taller wall makes for a much better experience of the public realm. And finally, I know that DCLs and the DCL waivers are often of a concern, and we've had some projects come forward through this process that have had waivers in the many millions of dollars. And I know that's Councillor Fry did raise the $1.3 million. I think that's a modest DCL waiver compared to many of the projects that we have seen. So I'm prepared to support. Oh, and I like the pet friendly. If there's a lot of people, I live in the West End, lots and lots of people who love their pets and have real problems with finding rental accommodation that is pet friendly. So appreciate that. Although there are pros and cons, but I have ended up leaning to supporting this.
Thanks so much. On to Councillor DeGenova, 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to start with a point of information for staff.
Okay.
And it's in follow-up to what I was asking before, because with unintended consequences, the point of information is would the amendment that was made and passed into this, and considering I understand from staff's interpretation, they might consider 25 feet frontage per retail outlet. I'm not sure if the applicant, has agreed to that, or that's something that they're aware of or could do.
I'm
wondering if that precludes childcare, which I was told before that childcare was a possibility in the neighborhood. So I'm just wondering if this amendment then cancels out the ability to have that, because it's not something that currently is had in the neighborhood, but is needed.
I can actually list it for you. I can address it for you, Councillor. Yeah. So, council, of course, we can ask staff through the DP process to talk to the applicant, but we cannot set the DP conditions, and that's the authority of the of that stage of the process, the DOP. So, and we can't regulate tenants. So, I mean, what we've done is we've really reached the edge of authority in this rezoning process is to instruct staff during the DP process to initiate those discussions. They've assured us they will. But you know, say there is a child care that wants to go in there, that would certainly be part of the conversation, I'm sure. So it doesn't limit it, but it does open that conversation.
Okay, it says protect existing. So I apologize for my concern, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you for alleviating that concern.
Okay.
And I am aware that we have no say in that process moving forward. Just wanted to make sure that that wasn't something that staff were guided by, but it was very clear in their answers before. I do think that this will add to the character of the neighborhood, and I think that whenever you add families and you add people and you add homes for people, it does add to the character of the neighborhood. I also really appreciate, and I wanted to just, I wasn't going to offer closing comments on this, as I've made my comments when I moved the motion, but I did want to note the speaker that talked about the importance of people who perhaps could afford to live in these units and want to live in these units, who will in fact free up and create vacancy and impact vacancy rates in the neighborhood in more affordable units as well. Because I think that that's when we hit the right supply, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at making sure that people are properly housed, not overhoused, not underhoused. If 30% of their income is what we're looking at, that's important. But also to understand that there are some people who in fact are overhoused because they can't quite make that down payment, but at the same time they could afford a mortgage on maybe a condo, and there simply isn't anything in between. So I think that this really is a thoughtful consideration. I know that it's something that I've certainly heard just walking around the neighborhood, that we need more of this in Hastings Sunrise, and happy again to support it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Council. That's it for council speakers on this. So I'm going to call the vote on this item. Councillor Dejanova.
Sorry, my panel froze, but I voted,
That's okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Right, and thanks very much. Clerks, could you display that on screen, please? And we have Councillor Swanson in opposition and Councillor Hardwick abstaining, indicated abstention. So thank you, Council. That has passed. Just to let you know, Council, in terms of we are at 14 minutes to 10. The next item has quite a lengthy presentation and, of course, a lot of speakers. So I don't think we would even get, well, we wouldn't get through the presentation of hitting 10 o'clock. So what I'd like to do is just, I would just like to recess for now and come back tomorrow at clerks. I believe it's at 6 o'clock that we'd regroup in this to hear this.
That's correct.
Do you need a motion to recess?
That would be great. Okay. Oh, that was pretty. I think that's pretty clear.
Councillor Kirby-Young.
Councillor Kirby-Young moves the motion. Councillor Hardwick can second, I'm sure.
Okay. Information.
Information or proceed. Go ahead, Councillor Weeb.
Yeah, just a question of staff. Friday night isn't a traditional time for having a public hearing meeting, so I'm just wondering, is that something that we've done in the past, and do we think we're going to get the proper participation from the public?
Well, the staff did schedule this, so there was no other time available. So I'm sure that the city manager, planning, and clerks have set that all up to make it proper. So I'm just going by that guidance. But it is there was no other time available just because of a lot to do with our own members' motions.
Okay.
So I've got the motion here, and so I'll call yeas and nays. All in favor, say yay.
Yay.
Say nay. Good. Thanks very much, Council. We're done for this evening, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks again.
Good night, everybody.
Indeed.
Good night. Yeah, good night. Night all.
Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.webex.com.